Welcome to Acera's pre-retirement seminar. In this seminar, I'm going to tell you all the things that you might want to know in the 3 years leading up to retirement, or maybe even the 3 months or 3 weeks leading up to retirement, because you're going to retire soon and you probably have questions. Questions like, what do I need to know about my retirement? Or what do I need to do, if anything? So we're going to get all those questions answered for you today. I have organized the answers to all of your questions into the form of this checklist. So we're just going to go through the checklist. This is your pre-retirement checklist. For the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to help you understand your membership. So we'll talk about your contributions to Acera. I'm going to talk a little bit about your retirement timeline and your tier. Okay, then I will help you estimate your retirement benefit that you will be receiving in retirement. And in order to do that, I will tell you about our retirement formula that helps you understand how we calculate your retirement benefit. I'll talk briefly about purchasing service credit. I'll talk a lot about how vacation sales affects your salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement. And then I'll show you our benefit estimate tool. I will also help you verify your retirement eligibility. I'll talk about choosing your retirement date. I'll talk about what the application process is to actually retire. And we will go into detail about the 5 different retirement allowance options that you're going to be choosing from at the time of retirement so that we can help you choose which one is best for you. I will help you understand other benefits like medical, dental, vision, and a few others. We'll talk briefly about other life events and signing up for Acera News, and that will take the full 3 hours. All right, let's jump right in. First off, let me help you understand your Acera membership. So who is Acera? Well, Acera, in one sense, is an acronym for the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association, but Acera is made up of a lot of people. There's about 90 of us that work here, and what we do is we provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to all of our members. That's all of you. You are members of Acera, and you're a member of Acera because of the position that you work in and the fact that it is a full-time retirement eligible position. So you work, hang on one second. You work, or at some point in the past, you worked full-time in the retirement eligible position for one of the 6 employers that participates in Acera. These are the public employers in Alameda County that have partnered with Acera to provide retirement benefits to their employees. And so as an employee working in a full-time retirement eligible position for one of these employers, you're automatically an Acera member. Now, if you go down to part-time later, that's fine. You still stay an Acera member and you still continue paying into the system and earning retirement. Okay, so speaking of paying into the system, as an Acera member, every time you get paid, you pay into Acera. So if you look at your pay stub, you'll see a line in there in the pre-tax deductions column that says retirement or something like that. That is money coming out of your paycheck, a small percentage of your paycheck, coming out and going into Acera's fund. And your employer is also making contributions on your behalf. So then we don't just want that money to sit there and do nothing. We invest it all over the world and we earn a lot of interest on that money. So it's these 3 sources of income: your contributions to the system, your employer's contributions to the system, and the earnings that we make on investing those contributions that give us this big pool of money that we call Acera's fund. So then what do we do with that fund? Well, meanwhile, you are working in your retirement eligible position and you're earning credit toward retirement as you work. And then at some point in the future, you're going to retire. And once you retire, after that, you're going to collect on that retirement that you've been earning throughout your career. You're going to get a retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. Okay, it's paid on the last business day of the month. So you cannot outlive your retirement. It's going to be every month for the rest of your life. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing to participate in a defined benefit pension plan. So it's a secure retirement that you can count on for the rest of your life. Okay. So, now I have a question. Does the stock market affect investments? Somewhat, in the fact that The investment earnings are part of part of the income that build Sarah's fund. But the way that the pension is set up is that if we earn less, a little bit less than we had anticipated, then the employer is on the hook to contribute more. So that means that the full contributions and the full earnings that we need in order to pay out benefits, we get all the time. So you don't have to worry about adverse investment experience. The way it's set up, you are guaranteed that secure retirement by law, by state law. Okay, so let me tell you about some pension milestones that you will see throughout your membership with Acera. The first milestone is your date of hire. That is the first day that they told you to show up to work in your full-time retirement eligible position, or it could be the first day that you actually worked in that full-time retirement eligible position if you started out in some other capacity like part-time. Okay, so this is your first day of work in that full-time retirement eligible position. Then for almost everyone, 2 weeks goes by, and the first day of your second pay period, that is your date of entry into Acera. That's your first day of Acera membership, and that is the day that you start earning credit toward retirement. Now, the exception to that are, I believe it's people who work for Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District and people who work for the Housing Authority. Your date of hire is your first day of Acera membership. So everyone else is the first day of your second pay period. Okay, then what happens is 5 years goes by if you work full-time for 5 years. Once you have full-time 5 years or the equivalent of 5 years of full-time service credit, you're considered vested in the retirement system. And vested just means guaranteed. You're guaranteed those vested benefits. You're basically guaranteed the guaranteed benefits that are guaranteed by state law once you're vested in the system with 5 years of service credit. Okay, then what happens is there's some date after you're vested that you become actually eligible to retire. And it's based on some combination of your years of service credit and your age. And I'll talk more in detail about that during the presentation. But that's your first day that you're eligible to retire. So you can retire on that day if you like, or you can keep working and keep earning more credit toward retirement. And that means that you will earn a higher and higher retirement allowance once you retire. So then some day after your retirement eligibility date becomes your retirement date, and it's a date that you choose when you're ready to retire. Okay, this is the day that you stop earning retirement and start collecting on your retirement every month for the rest of your life until your death. That's when your retirement payments stop. But there is another milestone on here. Depending on which retirement option you select, if you designate a beneficiary for a continuance, which is a continuing payment after your death, and usually it's for the rest of their life, they can get a payment every month for the rest of their life. And then the final milestone would be when they pass away and those payments stop. So those are all of the milestones. Okay, I see some questions up on the board here. Let me get to those. Okay, so the date of hire, does that need to be full-time hours? What typically happens is you cannot become an Acera member until you are hired into a full-time retirement eligible position. Okay, then after that, you could go back down to part-time, and then you are earning credit, kind of service credit on a part-time basis. But usually what happens, and I haven't heard of this not happening, that full-time retirement eligible position is what gets you your Acera membership. And you can verify your Acera membership and your date of entry into Acera by logging into your account on our website, and all that stuff is in there. Okay, let's see. Pensions in some state counties are not secure, and employees and retirees don't know what will happen to the pension fund. Is ours secure for life? Yes, absolutely. There are some states like I think Illinois, and I can't remember what other states. There might be another one, maybe like New Jersey or something. They took a pension payment holiday and the employers didn't contribute what they needed to contribute, and that caused huge problems because then we don't have that money to invest. Well, that doesn't happen here, so you don't have to worry about that. The employers always contribute 100% of what they are supposed to contribute by law, and it has always happened, and it will always will happen. Okay, so now next question, could you cover reciprocity with other retirement systems such as CalPERS? I will talk about that briefly. Yes. Okay, let's see. If you worked a few months before full-time, that time doesn't count. No, and I'll get to that in just a minute. If the continuance for a beneficiary is the continuance for a beneficiary an option that lessens the amount per month a retiree will receive? Sometimes. For one of the main option that people select the unmodified option, no. But we'll talk about that when we talk about the retirement options. Okay, so at this point, I want to show you this part of your pension worksheet. So it's your retirement planning worksheet. So I sent out a link to this in the email that you received. If you didn't click on that link, or you have otherwise not obtained that worksheet ahead of time, no worries. I'll show you exactly where to get that. So hang on for 1 second. Okay, here's our website. All you're going to do is navigate to the page where you found this retirement seminar, which is under news and events, retirement planning seminars. And then you scroll down to the webinar options. You click on the pre-retirement webinar, and there's the retirement planning worksheet right there. This is sort of designed as your takeaway from this webinar, because we found that without it, you just kind of go through the 3 hours, and then maybe you don't quite remember what you learned, and then a lot of people felt like they had to repeat the webinar. So with this, if you are able to kind of take some notes on this when you learn about the different numbers that are particular to your retirement situation, that will help you later when you come back and you try to remember what you learned in the webinar. So the first one that I was showing you is a screenshot of this section, My Career Timeline. So I'll just go back over to the presentation and we can talk about that. At this point, if you want to, and you can fill these out as we go along, or you could do it afterward, you could put in your ACERA entry date if you happen to know what it is. Or I've written up here that you can write in approximate dates. So if you happen to know that it was like November of 2003, you could write that in there. As long as you earn, work plenty past your retirement eligibility date, that entry date isn't super important. Okay. At this point, also, if you happen to have a projected retirement date in mind, you could pencil it in here. Or you could just leave it blank, because you might learn something during the presentation that might change what that is. And just to be clear, this is a fillable PDF. So if you go to the website, you're going to want to download the PDF, and then you can actually type into these fields as well. And so you can edit them later. Okay, let's see. There's a question, how do you sign up continuance beneficiaries? We'll talk about that when we talk about the 5 retirement options. Yeah, and we'll talk about reciprocity a little bit when we get there. Okay, so let me talk about vesting real fast. Vesting is when, like I said, when you have 5 years of service credit. Okay, so that either means you work full-time for 5 years and you get 5 years of full-time service credit, or maybe you start off, you go down to part-time, you work half-time for 10 years, whatever it is, the equivalent of 5 full-time years of service credit gets you over that vesting requirement. And that is one of the basic requirements to be eligible to retire. And that is what gets you the guarantee of the guaranteed retirement allowance. Now, that does include reciprocal service credit. So I can say a few words about reciprocity right now. Reciprocity is when you link various California retirement systems together. So like maybe you worked for a few years over in Marin County, for example, and then you come over and work in Alameda County. As long as no more than 6 months passes between when you left the first system and you enter the next job, the next system, you can establish reciprocity and link them together. And that gives you a lot of advantages for your retirement, including that the 5 years service credit that you need to be vested is combined among all of the systems that you've worked in. Okay, so I saw some questions about CalPERS. That would be, that would work for CalPERS, for any county in California, for a lot of cities in California. If you go to acera.org/reciprocity, there will be a lot more details about reciprocity in that on that page. And then when I start talking about the retirement formula, there's a question about how the retirement formula works. I'll talk more about that when I get there. And the guarantee is guaranteed by state law, like I was saying earlier. Now, the vested benefits, the guaranteed benefits are the monthly retirement allowance for the rest of your life, an annual cost of living increase to that retirement allowance. We'll go into detail about that later. And a $1,000 lump sum death benefit, which is kind of a basic benefit. But there are going to be other death benefits available to you when we talk about the 5 retirement allowance options. But this is kind of an extra lump sum death benefit that is considered a vested benefit. So those are the guaranteed benefits. Okay, so now that you know what your vesting date is, that's 5 years after, in most cases, it's 5 years after your SARA entry date. You could simply add 5 years to that entry date and write that in here. The vesting date isn't super important. The vast majority of people will work plenty of service credit after they're vested. So you can, kind of approximate it in there. Okay, and then there is a question. You submitted paperwork to establish reciprocity, but never heard anything back. Is there a deadline to establish reciprocity? I'm sorry that you didn't hear back from us. One thing that you are going to first want to do is log into your account on our website and see if in there it says reciprocity, yes or no. We may have established it for you, but then didn't connect with you. If it says no, then you would definitely want to call us. Our phone number is 510-338. I'm sorry, 510-628-3000. So again, that's 510-628-3000 and talk to one of our call center staff, and they can help you get that established. The deadline to establish it is kind of before retirement, but you're going to want to do it as soon as possible because it may change your contribution rate. Okay. Does a SARA allow transfer to a non-county job? If you work for one of our other 6 participating employers, you're basically just getting another job with that employer and you're going to maintain your SARA membership. So yes, the answer would be yes. Now, if you're going to go work for the private sector, you can stop working in a SARA and you can retire if you're eligible to retire, or if you're not yet eligible to retire or not ready to retire yet, you could become what we call a deferred member, which is you stop your public job, you go work in the private sector, and you just kind of have your SARA membership on hold, and then you can retire from a later date out of deferred status. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, let me I'm getting a lot of questions about reciprocity, so let me just address that here. Reciprocity is when we link, okay. Hang on one second. Okay, normally I don't talk a lot about reciprocity in this seminar. It's for our new employee / mid-career seminar, but since I'm getting a lot of questions, I'll just talk about it. These are some slides from our new employee / mid-career seminar. Reciprocity is when we link when you link various retirement systems together. Okay, so you worked at some point in a different public retirement, a different public job in a different agency in California. And if we have reciprocity with whatever their pension system is, we can link the systems together and that gains you some advantages. Okay. So we have reciprocity with many cities in California, California state jobs, not the UC system, agencies that use CalPERS, which is the state's retirement system. And there's a full list if you go to acera.org/reciprocity. So what happens is if we link the different systems together for you, like I was just saying, the service credit that you earn in all of the systems combined gets you over that vesting requirement and also the retirement eligibility requirements. And I haven't gone over the retirement eligibility requirements yet, but there's going to be some, minimum amount of service credit that you're going to need, and that will get you past the service credit that you earn under all of the systems will get you past the vesting and retirement eligibility requirements. The second benefit is that when we calculate your retirement, we're going to use the highest salary that you earned under all of the systems. Now, I haven't talked about the retirement formula yet, but you're going to learn that the salary is one of the components of the retirement formula. So the higher the salary that you have, the better your retirement allowance is going to be. So we're going to use the highest salary that you earn under any of the systems that you have linked together. Also, the third benefit is that if you're in tiers 1 or 2, not tier 4, it will keep your contribution rate lower if you establish reciprocity, because your contribution rate is based on your age when you entered the first retirement system that you entered. So you can link a bunch of retirement systems together. If this wasn't something that was on your radar, you could even look for another job in a different county. Maybe they pay higher somewhere else. You get that job over there. You move over to that job, you link the systems together, and then you are able to get these benefits. And what reciprocity essentially does is keep you from having to start earning your retirement over from scratch in a new system, because we're linking the systems together. In order to qualify for reciprocity, you have to defer your retirement, defer your membership in any system that you're linking together, okay, when you go to the next system. So let's say that you are working currently in a position for Alameda County, and you see a job that is looking pretty good over in Contra Costa County. So you take that job, you start working over there. What you're going to do with your Acera membership is defer your membership, which means that you leave your retirement contributions on deposit with Acera, and you're basically telling Acera, I'm still going to be an Acera member. My membership is just going to be on hold. So as a deferred member, you don't pay into Acera anymore. You don't earn any more retirement in Acera, like any more service credit. Your membership is just kind of on hold. That's the basic requirement for establishing reciprocity. You have to maintain your membership in all of the systems that you're linking together. Now, no more than a 180-day gap can exist between when you leave the first retirement system and enter the second retirement system. So when you defer the first, your first retirement from the first system and enter the next retirement system, which is about 6 months. Okay, so you're going to want to get that new job within about 6 months, or if not immediately. You also don't want to have overlapping service, which means that you don't want to go on a vacation, like a 5-week vacation for your first employer, and then start the next job immediately, because then you're in active pay status in 2 different employers simultaneously, and that will prevent you from establishing reciprocity. So just go ahead and leave your first job. They'll cash you out for your vacation anyway. You'll get all the cash for that. And then you just start the second job separately. Okay. And then you got to retire from all the systems on the same day in order to maintain a reciprocity. And what happens when you establish reciprocity, then when you go to retire, is that each one of those retirement systems will do a separate calculation for you, and they'll each send you a retirement check every month for the rest of your life. So that's essentially what reciprocity is. Okay, let's see here. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on from reciprocity. We can answer any more questions about that after the presentation. Okay, let me tell you about your tier. Your tier is based on your date of entry. So your date of entry into Acera. So if you entered Acera, for example, before July 1st, 1983, and you're a general member, that puts you in tier 1. Okay, now let me help you find which timeline you should be on. First of all, if you're a safety member, you're going to look at the safety member timeline. Safety members are sheriff's deputies, probation officers, and there might be some other sworn officers in there. Okay, so if you're a safety member, you know you're a safety member. If you're not a safety member, you're a general member. Okay, now if you're a general member, you're going to look at this timeline, unless you're a general member for the Housing Authority and for Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District, and then you will look at the appropriate timeline for your employer. Okay, so these dates here, these dots are cutoff dates. If you enter Acera before that date, that puts you in the earlier tier. If you enter Acera on that date or after, that puts you in the next tier up. So for example, if you entered Acera between July 1st, 1983, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, you're in tier 2 as a general member. Okay. Couple more things I'll point out about this. Housing Authority and LARPD have a couple of different cutoff dates for their tiers. LARPD has a different tier. Instead of tier 2, they have tier 3. And then for safety members, if you entered a SARA October 17th, 2010, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, you're either in tier 2C or tier 2D, depending on which you chose at the time that you entered your safety membership. You had a choice. Now, for everyone, if this doesn't tell you what tier you're in, then you can always log into your account on our website and it will tell you exactly what tier you're in. Okay. So what tier you're in helps you understand some other details of your membership, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So it's important to know what tier you're in. And since now we know what tier you're in, because it's based on your date of entry, you can go ahead and mark that on your worksheet. Okay, the next major topic that we're going to talk about is LARPD is Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District. That was one of our other participating employers. Let's see. 1998 is before December 2013. Why am I listed as tier 2? Yeah, exactly, because 1998 is before 2013. So you're in tier 2 because you started work in 1998, which is between July 1st, 1983 and December 31st, 2012. So since you entered in 1998, which is between those two dates, that's what puts you in tier 2. Okay. And is the tier system comparable across counties? It's not. Sort of. Before tier 4. So every other county system had their own set of tiers. So it may pay different amounts. The cutoff dates may be different, except for tier 4 was started by the state. The cutoff of it started January 1st, 2013, when they did the Pension Reform Act back in 2012. So then everyone who starts a new membership for another county is in tier 4. Now, if you have reciprocity and you're linking systems together, if your original membership date puts you in an earlier tier and you go to a different system, that may cause you to be in an earlier tier. And you can read more about that on our tiers page. So if you go to acera.org/tiers, there's a lot of details there that will tell you that about how to determine which tier you're in. There's a question, what does N/I mean on your account summary next to your tier? It means you're probably a safety member and you're not paying in the Social Security system, so you're not integrated with Social Security. And Social Security doesn't really link up with our system. It's just, there's just like a weird thing with Social Security where you're either integrated or non-integrated. Then there's a question about safety tier 4 percentages. I'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, so let me help you estimate your retirement benefits. Let me help you understand how to do that. And in order to help you understand how to do that, the best way I can think of to help you understand how to do that is to help you understand how we calculate your retirement system or your retirement allowance in the first place. Okay, this is our pension formula. When you go to retire, you're going to get as your retirement allowance. So I use the term retirement allowance, pension allowance, pension benefit, monthly retirement allowance for life. These are all synonymous terms for the retirement benefit that you're going to get every month for the rest of your life in retirement. So what you're going to get in retirement is a percentage of your highest working salary for each year of service that you work. Okay. Another way to think of it is in terms of this formula. So this sentence is describing what this formula is doing. It's a multiplication. Okay. So let me give you an example. It will help you understand it better. Let's say that the percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service, let's say that percentage is 2%, just for this example. And let's say that you earn 20 years of service credit while you work. So you work full-time for 20 years, you earn 20 years of service credit. Okay. That means that you're going to get in your retirement allowance 2% of your highest working salary for each one of those 20 years that you worked. Okay. So 2% for each of 20 years, that means that you're going to get 40% of your salary because we're multiplying it together. 2% for 20 years is 40%. So you're going to get 40% of your salary. Now, let's say your salary, to add some more example numbers to it, is $5,000 a month. Your retirement, this is what you're getting every month when you're working. Your retirement allowance is going to be 40% of that. So we multiply 40% times 5,000. That gives us $2,000. That is your retirement allowance for the rest of your life, plus cost of living increases. Okay, so that's how that works. Now the percentage, and to dive a little bit into more detail about each one of these three factors, I'll talk about each one in more detail. I'll start off with the age factor percentage. The percentage that you're going to get isn't necessarily going to be exactly 2%. It's going to be based on your age when you retire. Okay. And we have a chart full of all the percentages that tell us what percentage to put in the formula for you, that tell us what percent of your highest salary you're going to get for each year of service. And this is an example of that chart. Okay. So to find which column to look for that you should be looking at on this chart, first, you're going to look at either the safety side or the general side. Okay, so we've already determined who safety members and general members are. So safety members, again, are sheriff's deputies and probation officers. So you're going to be looking at this side, and then general members looking at this side. And then you find your tier, okay? And these are all the percentages that we are working with. So once you find your tier column, you can forget about all of the other columns. You're only looking at that one column. Now, to give you an example, let's say you're a tier 4 general member and you retire at age 65. So Sarah is going to go, okay, you're tier 4, you're retiring at age 65. Let's go over to the chart. You're a general member. So we're looking at tier 4. We're going to come down all the way to where tier 4 meets age 65. And we see that it's 2.30%. That is the percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service. That is the number that we're putting right here in the formula for you, 2.30%. Okay. So it's dependent on your age at retirement. Now I'll point out a few more things about this chart. One is that you'll see that the numbers get bigger the older you are when you retire. That means that this is sort of one of the areas in which you are earning more credit toward retirement. And this one is easy. You just get older. The older you are, the higher the age factor percentage we will put in the formula for you, up to a maximum for your tier. So the maximums are represented by the blue boxes. So you can see that if you retire older than the maximum age for your tier, you're going to get whatever the maximum age factor percentage is for that. So you can see that for tier 2 members at age 65, it's 2.43%. That's the maximum age factor you can get. If you retire at 66 or 67, you're still getting that 2.43%. Okay. You will also notice that I skipped a bunch of the ages. Okay. And that is because there are so many age factor percentage incremental increases that they don't all fit on the slide because it's based on each quarter year that you get older. And the quarter year is based on your birthday. So for example, if your birthday is January 15th, one quarter after your birthday is 3 months later, that's April 15th. Another quarter after your birthday is 3 months later, July 15th. Another quarter after your birthday is 3 months later, October 15th. And then back to your birthday. Every time you pass one of those dates, there's an incremental increase of the percentage that you're going to get in the formula for you based on your birthday. And so if this were the full chart, it would say like 52, 52 and a quarter, 52 and a half, 52 and 3/4, 53, and so on and so forth. If you want to see all the age factor percentages, you can find that on our website. Okay. And I think that's the last thing I want to say about that. There was a question about safety tier 4, and you can see what the percentages are here. And no, we're not multiplying the percentage by the age. This is a set percent. a set group of percentages written in the law that go with each age. So there's no multiplication happening on this chart. And then there's a question, if we obtain a benefit estimate online, is that typically pretty accurate? That's very accurate. Okay, and I'm going to save the rest of the questions for later. That's the age factor percentage. The next thing I'll talk about is years of service credit. So you start earning service credit when you enter a SARA, your date of entry into a SARA. Now you're going to continue earning service credit as you work until you retire. Or if you are one of those members that leaves early, which means that you stop working but don't go immediately into retirement, you defer your retirement to a later date, there would actually be another milestone on this milestone chart, which would say like termination date. And that would be the day that you stop earning credit toward retirement. And then you would have your retirement date at some point in the future. But if you're going straight into retirement, you're going to earn service credit all the way up until you stop working. Okay. Now, when do you earn service credit? You earn service credit during your regular work hours. You also earn service credit when you're out on your earned leave time, such as vacation leave, sick leave, management leave, comp time, holidays, floating holidays. None of those count against you in terms of service credit. While you're out on that leave, you're already earning service credit. So it's really nice. Now, there are some times when you do not earn service credit. If you're ever on leave without pay, you're not earning service credit during that time. If you purchase vacation on top of your earned vacation, some employers will allow you to do that. While you're out on that purchased vacation, you're not earning service credit. Okay. Also, if you sell your vacation back to your employer, you don't earn service credit for it. But if you do it strategically, you could earn salary credit for it in the formula, which we'll talk about when we talk about the next component in the retirement formula. So hang on to any thoughts or questions about that for the time being. You also don't earn service credit during overtime, on-call time, or standby time. Okay. Now, I'm just going to talk about this super briefly. You can purchase some time. So there's some time that is eligible for you to purchase to increase your amount of service credit in the formula for you. Examples of that are plain old part-time work that you did before you got your full-time retirement eligible position. And this isn't for employment agencies or under contract. This is just plain old part-time. That's purchasable. The county's temporary assignment pool time is purchasable. There's other types of project time that's purchasable. Those days between your date of entry and your date of hire, that 2 weeks, that's purchasable. Certain unpaid leave times, when you return from that leave, you can purchase it, like medical, disability, and military leave. The medical and disability is up to a year per instance. Redeposits of prior memberships. If you had a prior membership where when you left work, you took a refund, and then you're coming back and you want to deposit that money back to get your service credit back. That's called a redeposit, and that will increase your amount of service credit. And then if you worked for another California public agency. Now, I do not take a deep dive into this in this seminar. If you want to get information about that, I recommend going back and watching one of our videos on the new employee / mid-career seminar, or checking out our webpage at sara.org/purchase. Okay, so there is a question, do you earn service credit during maternity leave? Maybe. If you're out on while you're on maternity leave, if you're using your leave balances, like your sick leave and vacation leave balances, yes, you're earning service credit. Once you run out of those and you're out on unpaid medical leave, you're not earning service credit. But then when you return from that maternity leave, then that time that you didn't earn service credit for becomes purchasable. If you're on workers' comp, you may earn some service credit. Sometimes the way it works is you're getting a partial paycheck. You are earning service credit for that partial paycheck. And then the rest of the time, the rest of the paycheck where you're getting paid from the workers' comp system, you're not earning service credit, but that becomes purchasable once you return from that leave. Okay, last thing I'll say about service credit is what happens to your unused sick leave? If you go straight from active work into retirement, we will convert your unused sick leave to service credit. So that means that your last day on payroll is the day before your retirement date. Okay. You can be on leave this day. You can be on vacation leave or sick leave or whatever. That's fine. It's just that this is your last day on payroll. This is your first day of retirement. And that means you're going straight into retirement. And then we will do the sick leave conversion to you. And I'm stressing that because if you spend any time as a deferred member, if there's any gap between these two, then you lose all your sick leave. Okay. So if your plan is to go straight into retirement, you just make sure those 2 days are consecutive days. I'll talk more about that at the end of the presentation. And that we will convert your sick leave to service credit on a 2-to-1 basis. So you will essentially get half of your unused sick leave as service credit up to a cap. And the cap is in your memorandum of understanding, your MOU. If you've never seen your MOU, you can ask your human resources department for a copy of it and see what the cap is for you. So basically, we take your unused sick leave up to the cap that is allowable, and we divide it by 2, and that becomes additional days of service credit. So for example, a lot of the MOUs, the cap is 125 days of unused sick leave. So if you had 125 days or more of unused sick leave, and that was your cap, we would limit it to 125 days of sick leave divided by 2, and that means you get 62.5 days of additional service credit in the formula for you. Now, this doesn't change your retirement date or anything. This is simply numbers. This is simply additional amounts of service credit that go into the formula. Okay. Another thing I'll point out is that it's work days, not calendar days. So 62.5 days, if you're working 5 days a week, is about 12 plus work weeks, which is about another 3 months. Okay. So that's, a decent chunk of additional service credit. Does the web calculator count the sick leave for service credit? It does not do that conversion for you. Now, you can override the amount of service credit in that calculator, and I can show you how to do that later if you want to get an idea of that, but it does not do it. Okay, the last thing I'll say about purchasing service credit, there's a question, you did TAP from 2007 to 2009. Does the purchase option apply to you? Probably, because TAP is purchasable time. So what you would do is go to acera.org/purchase, read about purchasing service credit, and then there's a form that you fill out to request to purchase service credit, and we'll help you through that process. Okay, now I'm going to move on from the age factor percentage and service credit. I'm going to talk about the highest average monthly salary. And sorry, there's a lot of questions on here. Sorry if I'm kind of skipping around. I plan to answer some of the questions later when that topic comes up. And then the rest of the questions that are on the board, we'll get answers to those during the break and after the presentation. Okay, let me talk about highest average monthly salary, since we already talked about the age factor percentage and the years of service credit. What salary are we going to use in the formula? And how do we calculate that salary? Here's what we're going to do. When you go to retire, we're going to need to find your highest average monthly salary in your career. And we do that by looking at one period of your career called your final compensation period. This is your highest period of consecutive pay during your career. For tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest 26 biweekly or monthly pay periods. For tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest 78 biweekly or 36 monthly pay periods, depending on whether you're paid biweekly or monthly. So essentially, tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest 1 year of consecutive pay. For tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest 3 years of consecutive pay. Now, our goal for the formula is to figure out your highest average monthly salary. So what we do is we simply take based on your payroll records, and we look at your total pay during that highest year or highest 3 years, and we divide it by the number of months in that period to get the highest average monthly salary. So we'll divide it by 12 or 36. That tells us what you were making on average per month during that period where you were making the most in your career, called your final compensation period. Now, the types of pay that go into this are your base pay, of course, and for all of these types, we're talking about gross pay. Footnotes, some footnotes could go in there and some may not go in there, and it's all dependent on the footnote. There's like 1,000 different footnotes. These are other types of pay or pay codes based on skills and education. And you can find out for yourself if you go to acera.org/pay codes and pull up the PDF for your employer. It will tell you yes or no whether your pay code is in or out of this calculation. The one pay code I can tell you about over time, that never counts toward retirement. And if you need help finding your pay code on that sheet, your payroll manager will know how to find it. Okay, so the next 2 bullet points that can be included in your highest average monthly salary calculation are vacation sales and vacation cash out. This is kind of a big topic. I'm going to talk about this for 15 or 20 minutes. So just go ahead and hang on to your questions until I get to the end. And then we'll see if whatever I explained, whatever you were wondering is something that I explained during the explanation. For the vacation sales and vacation cash out, we're not talking to Tier 4 members because the state's Pension Reform Act eliminated Tier 4 members from being able to do this. So sorry, you can take a snooze. Also, Tier 3 members, if you're watching this. Tier 3 members, you're not allowed to sell vacation. So that eliminates you from being able to do this as well. So we're just talking to Tier 1 and Tier 2 members here. So here's what we're talking about. We're talking about vacation sales and vacation cash out. This is where you have your earned vacation, right? You're earning a certain amount of vacation every year. Now that is a benefit that you can get cashed out, that you can get paid for, you can get compensated for basically if you don't take your vacation. There's 2 ways to get compensated for your earned vacation that you're not going to take. You can sell it back to your employer while you're still employed. That's called vacation sale or vacation sell. Or you simply have vacation left over on the books when you stop working and or retire, and they will pay you for it at that time because it's on the books. You haven't taken it yet. They'll cash you out for it. Okay, so they'll compensate you for it. Now, what we're looking at in terms of the amount of vacation that we can include in the salary calculation for the purposes of calculating your retirement is the vacation sales and vacation cash out that are made during the final compensation period. Okay. And we're looking at the total of the 2. Okay. I'm about to talk about how we have to limit the vacation compensation in the calculation. And so when I'm talking about the limits, I'm talking about the combination of the 2. Now, the idea here is that if you, during that final compensation period, if you get paid for your unused vacation, that means that the total salary that you've made during that final compensation period is higher. If your total salary during your final compensation period is higher, that means your average salary over that period is higher. Because your average salary, your highest average monthly salary, is one of the 3 multipliers in the retirement formula, that means your retirement allowance is higher. The bottom line here is that getting compensated for your unused vacation during that final compensation period causes your retirement allowance to be higher. Now, I get questions, what happens if I sold a bunch of vacation a while ago before my final compensation period? Well, that's not going to count in here. It's only the vacation sales made during your final compensation period. Another question is regarding cash out. The cash out happens at the end of your career, right? Or when you stop working. And so the only time that the cash out would be included here is if your final compensation period is at the end of your career. That means that if you're making your highest pay at the end of your career, like the vast majority of people are, then we would be considering vacation cash out. If your period of highest pay is sometime earlier, then that your final compensation period will be earlier in your career, and the vacation cash out won't be considered. Okay, only vacation sales made during that period, unless your vacation cash out is so much that it causes your total earnings to be enough where it shifts what your final compensation period is to the end of your career, because we're looking for the absolute period of highest pay in your career. So getting cash out for vacation could shift what your final compensation period is. Okay. Now, I get the question, how much could your retirement allowance increase because of this vacation compensation? So I've prepared this table, which has very, very approximate percentages on how much your retirement allowance could increase based on weeks of vacation compensation. So for example, if you receive 6 weeks of vacation compensation during that final compensation period through a combination of vacation sales and vacation cash out, or one or the other, that would increase your retirement allowance as a tier 2 person by 3.8%. Okay. Now, don't get confused with these percentages, with the age factor percentages from the formulas, two totally different things. All I'm telling you is how much your retirement allowance is going to increase percentage wise based on the amount of vacation compensation in weeks that we're allowed to include in this calculation for you. For tier 1 members, those amounts are accelerated because it's a 1-year period versus a 3-year period. But this kind of approximates what the effect of getting that vacation pay in your highest average salary calculation is on your retirement allowance. This increase happens immediately and for the rest of your life. Okay. So that's why people have a lot of questions about this and they're interested in this topic, is because it's an immediate kind of boost at the time of retirement to your retirement allowance. This is all lawful. This is, in fact, written in state law. And if you are compensated for your vacation up to a limit during that final compensation period, we have to include that as salary and for the purposes of calculating your retirement because it's your compensation. But the law also tells us that we must limit the amount of vacation compensation that we are allowed to include in your salary calculation. The limit is different for everyone. It's going to be individual to you. And I will help you figure out right now what your limit is going to be. The first people that I'm going to address are Alameda Health System employees, because your vacation is calculated a bit differently than everyone else. Okay. So, and the definition of final compensation period is your period of your highest period of consecutive pay during your career. This is the period that we are looking at to determine your highest average monthly salary. So for tier 1 and 3, it's your highest year. For tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest 3 years of pay. Okay, Alameda Health System employees. You will find on your retirement worksheet, your retirement preparation worksheet, you will find this section that addresses you. It's in the section about vacation compensation caps. What you do to figure out the cap on vacation that ACERA is allowed to include, the cap on vacation compensation that ACERA is allowed to include in your salary calculation, is based on your hours of PTO that you earn per pay period. So Alameda Health System employees earn PTO. It's kind of a combination of vacation and sick leave. You put in your hours of PTO in the worksheet in this field here. You can probably find this on your pay stub, how much PTO you earn per pay period. Okay. In this example, it's 6.7692 hours of PTO you earn per pay period. Now, if you're in tier 1, you simply multiply by 13, and that gives you your limit in hours. If you're in tier 2, you simply multiply by 39, and that gives you your limit in hours. The exception is for Alameda Health System employees in the UAPD union. You have a flat cap, and for tier 1 members, the cap is 120 hours. For tier 2 members, it's 360 hours. So you don't have to do any multiplication. It's just 120 or 360. Okay. Everyone else, you just do the simple multiplication. That tells you your limit in hours of how much vacation compensation ACERA is allowed to include in the highest average monthly salary calculation for you. Okay, that's Alameda Health System. Now let me address people who work for Alameda County and the other employers. You will find a different section on your pension worksheet, and it will look like this. What you need to do is you need to have two numbers. You need to have how much vacation you earn per year. So that's in weeks of vacation that you earn per year. And you also need to know how much vacation you're allowed to sell per year. This is one of your employer's rules. It's in their policies somewhere. They have a maximum weeks of vacation you're allowed to sell per year. Often it's 2 weeks of vacation. Okay. For tier 1 members, you only need to know that for 1 year. For tier 2 members, since we're talking about a 3-year final compensation period, you need to know those numbers for all 3 of those years of your final compensation period. Okay. And again, your final compensation period is your period of highest pay in your career. And for the vast majority of people, it's going to be your last year or 3 years, depending on whether you're in tier 1 or tier 2. What you're going to do is fill out these fields with how much vacation you earn per year and how much you're allowed to sell per year. In this example, this person earns 5 weeks of vacation per year, and then they're allowed to sell 2 weeks of vacation, 2 weeks of that 5 per year. That's their employer's rule. Okay. Now, again, if you're in tier 2, you're going to want to fill out the rest of the fields. Oftentimes, these are all the same. The rule for how much you're allowed to sell doesn't change very often. How much vacation you earn may not probably change over that 3-year period, but sometimes it does. It often doesn't matter though, because what actually we're going to be looking at is the lesser of the 2 numbers for each 1-year period. A calculator is going to help you do that. So you take these numbers that you put into the fields and you go out to our website, sarah.org/vacation, and you'll find a calculator there. Okay. So sarah.org/vacation. I'll actually go out to the website and show you that. So I'm going to sarah.org/vacation. Okay, you'll see here, this is the section on understanding how vacation leave affects your retirement allowance. So all you do is you simply click on this first pull down and it will expose the calculators. Then you take the numbers that you wrote in the fields and you just put them in the calculator. So for tier 1, I'm sticking with the example, they earn 5 weeks of vacation per year and they're allowed to sell 2. And then it will calculate your maximum weeks of vacation compensation. And we'll put that in the worksheet. So in this example, it's 2 weeks. For the tier 2 example, you need to do it for each one of the 3-year periods. I'm sorry, each 1-year period during the 3-year final compensation period. So you put in 5 in this example, 2. It gives you a running total as you go along. And so the limit would be 6 in this example. Okay. Now, all this is doing is it's comparing the 2 numbers you put in each 1-year period and taking the lesser of the number and then totaling at the bottom. So you can see that 2 is the lesser number in each case, and it's just adding up 2 plus 2 plus 2. So it's a pretty simple calculator. So you could just do it in your head if you want. So let me switch back to the presentation. So based on the limit that you got from the calculator, now you put that in the fields here. So this is the maximum amount of weeks of vacation compensation for you that a Sarah will be allowed to put in the salary calculation. Okay, so if you are compensated for 6 weeks of vacation during your final compensation period, we will put that 6 weeks worth of money into as salary, and that will increase your retirement allowance. Okay, so the best way in most cases, if you're interested in getting compensated for your vacation up to this limit in order to get that boost for your retirement allowance, the best way is to simply have that amount on the books when you retire. You don't even worry about selling vacation while you're still employed. You sell 0, okay? And you just simply have that limit, whatever the limit is for you, you just simply have it on the books when you stop working. And that will get you that boost because we can do up to the limit. So in this example, their limit is 6. They sold 0 weeks because they didn't need to. They simply had 6 weeks of vacation left over on the books. When they stopped working and retired, they got 6 weeks worth of cash pay. Their employer wrote them a check for 6 weeks worth of pay that went into their bank account. And because they were paid that amount, we included that as salary for the purposes of calculating their retirement. So that's what you should do in most cases. Now, there are some people that will find that you can't get up to the limit simply through the cash out. So let me give you a different example. This person earns 4 weeks. It's another tier 2 example. They earn 4 weeks of vacation per year and their employer will let them sell 3. Okay, so if they go do the calculator, they will find that their limit from the calculator is 9 weeks worth of vacation because it's 3 plus 3 plus 3. Okay. Now, Your employer has another rule, and this is a rule for everyone who's not in AHS. Your rule is they will only cash you out for 2 times your accrual rate. So if your accrual rate of vacation is 4 weeks per year, 2 times 4 is 8. If you have more than 8 weeks of vacation on the books, they will not cash you out for any more than that. Okay, that's their upper limit on how much they'll cash you out for. Now, that's a little bit of a problem here. If at first it seems like a problem because your limit is 9 and you can't get up to the 9 simply by having 8 weeks on the books. So that's when you would want to sell. The solution to the problem is easy. You just sell a week to get up to the 9 while you're still employed. So you sell 1 week, you have 8 weeks on the books. When you stop working, that gets you up to the 9. That's the only reason that you actually need to sell vacation. Otherwise, just simply have it on the books when you stop working. If you can get up to your full limit, like the previous example. Now then I get questions. What if I already sold a bunch of vacation? Because a lot of people, you sell vacation for whatever reason, you're looking for extra cash, or there's some kind of old information that you have to sell vacation to get up to this limit. So what happens if you already sold vacation? Well, that's fine if you already sold a bunch of vacation. You're going to have 2 options here. So let's say sticking with this example where their limit is 9 weeks. Let's say that you already sold 5 weeks of vacation sometime in the 3 years leading up to retirement. And this is assuming that your final compensation period is your last 3 years. Okay. So you already sold 5 weeks. So option number 1 is you simply cash out the difference. You just take the 5 that you've already sold and you cash out enough to get up to the 9, which is in this case is 4 weeks. Option number 2 is you could even cash out more if you want. If you are one of those people that don't take a lot of vacation for whatever reason, and you have more than the 4, that's fine. What we're going to do is we're going to see that during your final compensation period, you actually got paid for 13 weeks worth of vacation. Okay, now the law tells us we have to limit it to 9. So we're only going to include 9 weeks worth of that salary, compensation as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement. But you still got all the cash. Okay, the 5 weeks, whenever you sold it, that went into your bank account. When you cashed out the 8 weeks, that went into your bank account. You still got all the cash for those weeks that you sold and cashed out. It's just that we can only include 9 weeks worth of that cash as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement. Okay. So let's see. What questions can I answer about this? And I'll do just like a few questions because we're running a little behind and we need to move forward. Let's see. There's a few questions up on there. How do you determine which is the best financial option in terms of vacation cash out or an alternative? So I think I just answered that, which is that the best financial option is to just keep it simple, do the cash out, and then if you need to sell any, do the sell. Okay, that's the best option. There's some people that ask, well, what if I take the vacation at the end and push out my retirement date instead of getting cashed out for it? And I get service credit for it, but not salary credit for it. You can do that, but the boost that you get for the salary credit is way higher than you're going to get for those extra weeks of service credit. So I wouldn't even consider that unless you already have on the books the max of your limit and you're going to be able to cash it out. And then you have extra vacation. Then you could think about pushing your retirement date out and having your last few weeks be that extra vacation in order to, get that few weeks of extra service credit. But, a few weeks of service credit here and there is peanuts. It's not going to increase your retirement allowance by that much. So it's not really something to really worry about. Okay, let's see. There's a question. What is our timeline for selecting and notifying Sarah what we want to do with the unused vacation? You don't have to notify us of anything. All you need to do is simply get compensated for the vacation. We see it in your payroll records because your employer transmits all of your payroll records to us so that we can do these pension calculations. So if you sell vacation, we see it in your payroll records. If you cash out vacation, we'll see that in your final payroll record of your final pay period. So you don't need to notify us of anything. We'll do all these calculations for you automatically. Okay. Let's see, what happens to any extra vacation you have? Any extra vacation that you're compensated for beyond what we can include, like I said, you get the cash for it. It's just we're only allowed to include up to the amount that we're allowed to include. So in the example I gave you, this person sells 3, they cash out 8, they got compensated for a total of 13 weeks of unused vacation. That means that they got 13 weeks of cash in their bank account. And we are allowed to include 9 weeks worth of that cash as salary for the purposes of calculating their retirement to give them that 9 weeks extra boost. So that's what happens to that. Now, if you're asking what happens to extra vacation above the 2 times your accrual rate, that disappears. So you do not want that to happen. If you have, let's say that you earn 4 weeks per year and you have more than 8 weeks on the books, you're going to want to do something with whatever is over the 2 times your accrual rate. Because if you don't do anything with it, then you're going to lose it. It's going to go poof and disappear. And you're not going to get cash for it. You're not going to be able to take the vacation. So you're either going to want to go ahead and sell that before retirement, or you're just going to want to go ahead and take the vacation so that you don't lose it. Can Sarah calculate this for us? Yes, I know this is complex. So if you want help, if you want somebody to walk you through this one-on-one, I think the best way to do that is to just go ahead and give us a call. Our number again is 510-628-3000, and it's on our website too. And we have a call center, and they help people through this stuff all the time. And so they can walk you through this as well. Okay, let's see here. If we're going with a cash out, can we do the sale at the last minute? Good question. Probably. I'm not exactly sure what the rules are around selling vacation. From a Sarah's perspective, if your employer will let you sell it, we don't care when you sell it, as long as it's in that final compensation period. So if they'll let you sell it a week before you stop working, then that's great. So I would go ahead and check with your employer, probably your payroll clerk, to see what the rules are around timing for selling vacation. But as long as you sell it prior to terminating, then you're making sure to avoid the limit on coming up against 2 times your accrual rate. Okay, so there's a question. I'm still seeing the calculator. So if you did the calculation on the PowerPoint, oh crap, I'm so sorry. I didn't switch back to the presentation. Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry about that. Let me know if you want me to explain anything again. Okay, so there's a question. Do we accrue sick leave and vacation as the year progresses? Don't we accrue sick leave and vacation as the year progresses? So if we leave mid-year and we're credited for paid leave days that come later in the year, are we credited for paid leave days that come later in the year after we've retired? No. Yeah, you're right. You accrue sick leave and vacation as you go along. So whatever you have earned up to that point is what is kind of the vacation that is there for you to work with regarding selling it or cashing out. Okay, so you're saying you remember from a much, much earlier retirement seminars, advice to sell vacation each year leading up to retirement. So you should forget what you heard before, because the limits on what we're allowed to include regarding vacation have changed over time. There was, first of all, the the Public Employees Pension Retirement Act was passed by the state in 2012. And as of 2013, that changed how we did this calculation. And then last year, the Board of Retirement went with a new interpretation of that law that further made these limits a little bit smaller. And so for a lot of people now, you don't even need to worry about selling vacation. The only reason you would need to worry about selling vacation is if you're going over the 2 times your accrual rate, if you're in danger of going over the 2 times your accrual rate. Like in this example where this person 2 times their accrual rate, so their limit is 9 from the calculator, 2 times their accrual rate is 8. And so they can't get up to the 9 simply from cashing out. Okay. So they would need to then sell 1 week of vacation in order to get up to the 9. But that's the only reason that you would need to sell. If you're interested in getting up to the limit and you can't get up to the limit because of this 2 times your accrual rate limit. Okay. That's the only reason that you would need to sell. So anything else that you remember is old information. Okay. Okay, so then let me go ahead and move on from this topic. And if anyone wants more help with that during the break or after, we can talk more about it. So welcome back to your 4 members. Okay, let me talk about this real fast and then we'll take a break. There are limits on how much vacation, I'm sorry, that's the previous topic. There are limits on your retirement allowance, and those are detailed in this slide here. Now, the vast majority of people are not going to hit these limits, so most of you don't have to worry about this, but let me just show you what they are. The first limit is that your retirement allowance is capped at 100% of your highest average monthly salary. This is essentially trying to make it so that you can't make more in retirement than you were making when you were working. Now, that's true. It does limit it to that, except, like we were just talking about, your highest average monthly salary can be a bit higher based on the vacation compensation. But for the most part, that's exactly what this limit does. Most people do not hit this limit. For tier 1 members, you have to work like 35 plus years and be a certain age. For tier 2 members, it's like over 40 some years. So for the vast majority of people, you're not going to hit the limit. But if you do hit the limit, the bad news is that you won't be earning more in retirement if you work more. The good news is that you won't be earning more in retirement if you work more. So you can just go ahead and retire. Okay, the limits for B and C are for people that have really high salaries. So I'm just going to skip over that. If you have pretty high salaries, you're going to want to go ahead and see if these limits apply to you. Now, for the last limitation, this is for tier 4 members. And there is a cap on how much annual salary we are allowed to include for the purposes of calculating your salary for retirement. This cap goes up every year. For the 2022, these are the numbers: 134, almost 135,000 for general members, and almost 162,000 for safety members. So the bad news is that if you earn more salary than that, that won't get you any more salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement. Now, the good news is that we track that your earnings each year. And whenever you go over that amount each year, then we stop taking retirement contributions out of your paycheck. And that leaves you more money to save in your investments or 457B account. But that is a limit for the tier 4 people. Okay, one more thing before I move on is there was a question that you didn't understand the $162,000 salary piece for the benefit limit. So let me explain that a little bit better. So it sounds like you're a safety member and you're looking at this tier 4 limitation here. What this means is that if your salary is higher than this, let's say it's 180,000. Okay. There's going to be a point in the year, probably like November, where you have already earned the cap for safety members in tier 4 of what a SARA is allowed to include as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement. Okay. So let's say it's the first week in November, you hit $162,000 in total earnings. Okay. At that point, Sarah will stop taking retirement contributions out of your check for the rest of the year. Then the first pay period in January, then it resets, and then we'll start taking retirement contributions out of your check again. So between November and December, in my example, that gives you more money in your check to do more savings for you in your 457B account if you have one. And then when we go to calculate your retirement, we will it's a 3-year final compensation period. So let's say that there was 3 years worth of that same thing happening. We would, and you earned more than the cap. Well, we would only be able to include $969, $162,000 as salary for that first year. Let's say that you're retiring 3 years from now. Next year, the cap will be a little bit higher. Let's say it's 163,000. The year after that, the cap is a little higher. It's 164,000. So that total is the total amount that we're allowed to include for the purposes of calculating your pension. Now, it's a little more complicated than that because you're not retiring exactly lined up with the calendar year, but that's kind of essentially how it works. Okay. Now let me help you figure out an estimate of your retirement allowance, because I've kind of talked in general about how your retirement allowance is calculated, but let's talk about how your specific retirement allowance might be calculated and what an estimate of that calculation might be. I'm going to show you 2 ways to get an estimate. The first way is a quick ballpark estimate of your basically it's how much income your retirement allowance is going to replace from your working income is a good way to think about it. So all you do is you think of your retirement scenario. How old am I going to be in my retirement scenario? Let's say it's 58. How many years of service credit will I have earned? And just do whole numbers in this scenario. So 29 in this example I'm giving you. Okay. What you do is you take those 2 numbers, your retirement age and years of service credit, and you find where they intersect on one of our ballpark salary charts. So you can go to acera.org/ballpark, or you can just navigate to it on our website. I'll switch over and show you where to do that, and I'll make sure to remember to switch back to the presentation this time. So if you go to our homepage, okay, you can just go under members, and you can do this from any page really. Go under planning your future retirement income. You just scroll down, and under option 1, there's going to be a button for your tier, and you just press the button. Okay, so let's say, I think it's a tier 2 example. So in that example, I was retiring at age 58 with 29 years of service credit. So on the y-axis is years of service credit. On the x-axis is age at retirement. So I'm going to go over from 29 years of service credit and find where it intersects with 58 years of age. And that means that I'll get 50.03% of my working salary as my retirement allowance, which is pretty good. Okay. So whatever I was making per month while I was working, I'm going to get about basically half of that as my retirement allowance. One interesting feature of this chart is you can find where those intersect, and then you can see what happens if you decide to work another year by proceeding diagonally down the chart. So in another year, I'll be a year older and I'll have another year of service credit. So if I work another year, I'll achieve 54.5% salary replacement. If I work another year, after that, I'll achieve 59.42% salary replacement. Okay, so that's how these charts kind of give you a quick idea of the level of salary replacement that you're going to have in retirement. And financial planners will tell you that you need 70 to 80% of your whatever your working salary was in retirement to maintain your standard of living. And if you get 50% from your pension alone, that's great, because you also have Social Security and other savings that's gonna factor in there. Okay, so, but sticking with that 50%, let me switch back to the presentation. So now So now that you have the 50%, you can just kind of think, because we're doing a ballpark estimate first, you can just kind of think about how much you make per month. Okay. And then you just multiply that percentage by how much you make per month. In this example, it's about 50% of $6,000. So it's about $3,000. That's just like a quick way to do it. Now, let me show you the precision way to do it with our online benefit estimator. So you log into your account on our website. Okay. First of all, what you're going to do on your worksheet is think of your retirement scenario. And this time, think of a specific set of dates for your scenario. So I'm going to retire a year from now. And so I'm going to retire about March 1st of 2023. Okay. I had to remember what year it was. And so I can go ahead and put that in as my projected retirement date. Now, the separation date, if I'm going straight into retirement, should just be like the day before that. So those would be on 2 consecutive days. Now, it doesn't have to be that way. If you know that you're going to do a scenario where you are stopping working but not retiring yet, there could be some gap between these days. Okay. Your separation date is your last day on payroll, basically your last day of work. Your projected retirement date is your first day of retirement. So then you go out to our website, you log into your account. So go to acera.org, click the login button, and you log in. Okay. If you've never done it, you need to create an account and then you can log in. And you'll see the summary screen. First off, you're going to want to click Estimate a Benefit. And then that brings you to our benefit estimate tool. And then you put the 2 dates in here, separation date and projected retirement date. Okay. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see it a little bit better. In this scenario, in this example, I've picked these 2 dates and I hit calculate. And what it will do is it will project how much service credit I will have earned in this scenario. So it's going to fill in the future with more service credit. And then it will also do a salary projection based on my current salary. You can override both of those numbers if you like. If you want a nice conservative estimate, I recommend not overriding those numbers, but you can. Like there was somebody who was asking about the sick leave conversion and how to see what the effect of that would be. So let's say that you get 3 more months of additional service credit because of the sick leave conversion. Well, 3 months is about a quarter year. So you would take 0.25, which is a quarter. You would add it to this number and put the new total in the override service credit field. And that's how you override service credit. That's how you see the effect of adding more service credit. And we'll talk about this field, hours of cash vacation compensation, in a minute. You can fill in beneficiary information here, and then you hit get estimate, and you end up with this retirement benefit estimate PDF. Okay. So what you're going to be looking at for our purposes right now is just this number here under the unmodified option. This is your estimate of what you're going to get in retirement every month for the rest of your life. Okay. Now, let me help you figure out, if you want to, what to put in this field here. Okay. Because if you want to, and if you're interested in this concept of how much of the vacation compensation increasing your retirement allowance, like we were just going through, you can get an estimate of what the effect of that cash vacation compensation will have on your retirement allowance by filling in hours of cash vacation compensation here. Let me help you do that without overestimating. Okay. So what you're going to want to do is go to this section of your worksheet. This is all about helping you calculate what to put in that field without overestimating. The reason that you might overestimate is because you've already sold some vacation during this date range that this estimator is using to calculate your salary projection. So we're going to want to subtract out anything that you've already sold during that range. And this is what this part of the worksheet helps you do. So step 1 is run an estimate and leave that hours of cash vacation compensation field blank. Okay. And so you can go ahead and do that. You just leave this blank, you run the estimate, and you end up with this estimate. Okay. And then on the worksheet, what we're going to do, we're going to fill out the first 3 fields here. Okay. The first field is your limit from the calculator from the other section of the worksheet, your limit of how much vacation compensation we are allowed to include in the salary calculation for you in weeks. So this is for everyone but AHS. So you put your limit in weeks here, and we're going to convert it to hours by putting in your weekly work hours. So let's say my limit is 6 weeks. I work 40 hours per week. I'm going to multiply that together to get my limit in hours, 240 hours. Okay. Now for AHS members, we already know your limit in hours. And so you can just start here and put in your limit in hours from the other part of the worksheet. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to go to the retirement estimate PDF that you just made. Okay. And you're going to look at the salary date range. There's a date range here that it's using. This is basically your final compensation period that it's for the purposes of doing this estimate that it's doing to make the salary projection. And so if you sold vacation during this time, that's already going to be included in your salary. Okay, so you're going to think to yourself, did I sell vacation during these, in between these dates? And if so, how much? Okay, let's say in this example, I remember selling a week of vacation in those dates. So I'm going to want to subtract that out from my limit, because if I leave it in there, it's going to make it so that I'm overestimating. I'm including too much. And this is the number that I would then put in the hours of cash vacation compensation field. Now, if you didn't sell any vacation, you just put in your limit in hours. Like if this was 0, then I would just put in my full limit in hours, 240, and I could see what the effect of having that full amount of cash vacation compensation would be. But because in this example, I sold 40 hours worth of vacation during that salary date range, that 40 hours is already included in the salary projection. So I don't want to include the extra 40 in here. And then I hit get estimate. And what you'll find once you do that is on your second estimate, your retirement allowance estimate will be more because we're including some vacation compensation in there. And so that's how you do that. Okay, so for our purposes, right, in this part of the presentation, these are your estimates for your retirement allowance, but you can, for right now, just look at the unmodified option. We'll talk about the other options in just a little bit. And if you want to, you can go ahead and fill out this section of your worksheet by putting in your precision estimate amount in here. Okay. So I gave you 2 options for getting a retirement allowance estimate, a ballpark option and a precision option using our online calculator. Your third option is you can simply submit a request to us and we'll do it all for you. Now, there's a wait time involved with this because we get a lot of these requests, and you'll find that our staff is using the same software that Web Member Services, which is the tool that I was just showing you. They both use the same software, and so it's the same math, and so you're going to get the same result. But we will do it for you if you like and send you an estimate. But there is a wait time involved in that versus doing the estimator is available 24/7 and you can come up with an estimate in about 5 minutes. Okay, next topic. Let me help you verify your retirement eligibility. We're talking about this milestone on the pension milestones chart, your retirement eligibility. It's going to be based on some combination of years of service credit and age. Let me show you the different combination options. I'm going to talk about tiers 1, 2, and 3 first, and then I'll show you a slide for tier 4 in just a minute. So option number 1 for tiers 1, 2, and 3 is you have to be at least age 50. You have to have at least 5 years of service credit and at least 10 years of membership, and that makes it so that you're eligible to retire. So the reason that the difference between membership and service credit here is that if you are somebody who's is going to defer your retirement to a later date. So if you stop working after the 5 years, when you've earned at least 5 years, but before you've earned 10 years of membership, then you would have to be a deferred member for at least until you have achieved 10 years of membership. So it's basically after 10 years have elapsed from your date of entry into ACERA. I'm not sure why that's a rule. It's a strange rule, but that's just how it is. Now, if you're somebody who's going straight into retirement from active work, you probably want to think about it rather as having 5 years of service credit. You just have 10 years of service credit and 10 years of membership, and you're over age 50 and you go straight into retirement. That's option one. Option two, for general members, you can have 30 years of service credit, or for safety members, 20 years of service credit and retire at any age, even if it's younger than age 50. Option three is that you can have any amount of service credit as long as you're at least age 70, even if it's less than the 5 years of service credit that you need under option one. So you can retire with any amount of service credit at age 70, even if it's like 4 years of service credit. So that's your third option for retirement eligibility. So as long as you meet one of these three options, you're eligible to retire. Now for tier 4 members, you have these two options. Option one is for general members, you're at least age 52. For safety members, you're at least age 50 and you have at least 5 years of service credit. And that gives you retirement eligibility. And you don't have to worry about that 10 years of membership thing. That's not a thing for tier 4. Option number two is that you're at least age 70 with any amount of service credit, even if it's less than the 5 years, and you can retire. Okay, so that's a real easy topic. That's how you become eligible for retirement. So now that you know what your retirement eligibility date is, you can put it in your worksheet here on the first page, if you like. If you already happen to know that you're like way eligible to retire, you achieved eligibility long ago, you don't even have to worry about, what that date was. Okay. Let me see, there's a questions up here. Okay, there's a question. It's about putting in your beneficiary in the online estimate versus filling out the hard copy form. Those two things don't connect. So if you ran some estimates with a certain beneficiary in the online estimate, and then you want to do something different when you're filling out the form and sending it into us, that's totally fine. We don't even look at whatever you did on the website. So yeah. Okay, does Acera provide a pre-retirement checklist for members so that we can make sure we take care of critical steps timely? Yes. In fact, they're out on our website, and I'm going to show you that pretty soon. There is a checklist, and also whenever you contact us to start the retirement process, I believe you get a checklist as well. There's a question up there, is our pension taxable? Yes, it is, because you pay into the fund on a pre-tax basis. That means your pension is taxable going out. So you will have to pay income taxes on your pension. Okay, there's a question. My retirement, and sorry, I'm just going to keep skipping around. My retirement date is August 20th, a Saturday. The last day I plan to work is Friday, August 19th. Is the 19th my separation date? Yes, that would be your separation date. Provisional status for 10 years, making contributions, that doesn't make a difference. That's not even something that Sarah looks at. Okay, I'll maybe keep going back and picking up some of those earlier questions as we go along, but I'm gonna move on. Do you happen to know how old one has to be to get their Social Security benefit? There's an age range. The starting age is 62. If you go to Social Security's website, they have more information on that. And in fact, if you can do an estimate on their website similar to our website, and it will give you a bunch of different ages that you can retire with different amounts. Okay, let me help you choose your retirement date. We're talking about this date on the pension milestone chart here, your retirement date. It's a date that you choose. There are various factors that you're going to want to think about when finding the best day to retire. Okay, so we'll go through all 6 of these. The first one, will you have enough income to retire? So this is something that you may want to think about. It's a good idea to go ahead and get that ACERA retirement estimate and just like take a little peek into the future to make sure that the amount that we're estimating you're going to receive in your pension is enough to pay for your life. It's also a good time to contact the deferred compensation program about what your balance is and about what their suggested disbursements are. And in fact, they'll talk about that in the deferred compensation post session in about an hour. And then it's also good to go ahead and get that Social Security estimate. So this is what I was just talking about. If you go to ssa.gov/estimator, there is a estimator on there that the Social Security system will give you an estimate similar to ACERA's from what you're going to get from Social Security at various ages. If you want to, you can think about your post-retirement expenses. That's one way to do it. You kind of add up what your income is going to be and then compare it with what your expenses are going to be. And that kind of gives you an idea of what your life is going to look like after retirement. That's one way to do it. A different way to do it is maybe perhaps in a simpler way, not as precise, is to simply shoot for this 70 to 80% mark that I was talking about earlier. Financial planners say that you need 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income to maintain your standard of living. So if you look at your ACERA retirement estimate and it's about 50 or 60% of your pre-retirement income, then you're going to be looking to Social Security and any other savings like in deferred comp to make up the rest of that to get you up to that 70 to 80%. There's actually on our website a whole page. If you're really interested in that topic, there's a whole page that will walk you through that. So if you go out to acera.org and you scroll down to this berry colored section here, this is your ready to retire section. And there's a prepare to retire link here. And so this is actually our website, basically our website checklist. You were asking about a checklist earlier. This is the section that we want you to go through prior to retiring so that you understand all of these topics and get familiar with the different things that you're going to need to do in preparing to retire. And one of the topics is estimating your retirement income. And so there's a step-by-step process here. And there's like links out to the Social Security estimator for doing those estimates. And there's some worksheets here and so on and so forth. So if you really want to get down into the details of that, there's a budget worksheet, there's a retirement calculator. So if you really want to get into the details of that, you feel free to check out that section. So it's kind of up to you how deeply you want to look into this topic. Okay, number 2, these age factor percentage dates. This is something that you may want to think about when you're choosing your retirement date. So let me just revisit this topic. This is regarding those dates and the age factor percentage portion of the retirement formula. Remember, there's the age factor percentage increases with every 3 months you get older and don't retire. Okay, so there's an incremental increase in the age factor percentage every time you pass one of those dates. So let me give you an example. Your birthday is January 15th. Okay, that means that 1 quarter after your birthday is April 15th. 2 quarters after your birthday is July 15th. 3 quarters after your birthday is October 15th, and then back to your birthday. So every time you pass one of these days, as long as you haven't not yet reached the maximum age for your tier, you are getting an incremental increase in your age factor percentage. If you are already older than the maximum age factor for your tier, then you can just ignore this. So this doesn't even concern you because you've already achieved the maximum age factor percentage. But let's say that you haven't, and your birthday is January 15th, and you're thinking about retiring on July 14th. Don't do that. You can already see that you don't want to do that, okay? Because if you work July 15th, retire July 16th, you get a slightly higher age factor percentage. In fact, it will increase your retirement allowance about 1%, a little over 1%, just by waiting those 2 days. Okay. The same thing goes with the other dates. So what I'm trying to illustrate here is if you have not yet achieved the maximum age for your tier regarding the age factor percentages, just be cognizant of what these dates are and don't retire right before one. Okay. Don't retire on July 14th or April 14th or whatever, based on your birthday. Just be cognizant of the dates and just if you're thinking about retiring right around one, just make sure you work past it. Now, if you're going to retire maybe halfway between these dates, I'm not suggesting that you need to work another 6 weeks to get past the date. Maybe you're already done and you're just going to go ahead and retire. Well, you already got past, the date 6 weeks ago. So I wouldn't even worry about it. So I'm just trying to tell you to be cognizant of these days. Don't retire right before one. Okay, the third thing that you may want to think about is the cost of living adjustment date. So this happens every April 1st. The cost of living adjustment, remember, is a vested guaranteed benefit. So it's something that you get each and every year in retirement. It is an increase, a percentage increase to your retirement allowance, and it's calculated based on inflation in the Bay Area. So the percent increase of the consumer price index from December to December becomes the cost of living adjustment. So let's say that prices go up 5% from December to December. That becomes the percentage that we're working with for the cost of living adjustment. Okay. Now, even if inflation is that high one year, there is a maximum cost of living adjustment that you can get based on your tier in any 1 year. For tiers 1 and 3, it's 3%. For tiers 2 and 4, it's 2%. Okay. So what happens to that extra inflation percentage points in my example? Well, those will go into your COLA bank for use in future years. Okay. So if there's any year where inflation is so high that it's above your maximum, we will bank those percentage points for the future. Maybe a year comes along where inflation isn't quite your maximum. Maybe next year is 1%. Well, then we'll take percentage points out of your COLA bank to get you up to your maximum annual cost of living increase amount. And so it's a kind of complicated way to say that the bottom line is that for people who have already been retired for a few years, you tend to get the maximum cost of living amount because you tend to have banked percentages. So if you've already been retired 5 years, almost everyone gets the 2% or the 3% every single year going forward. Okay. Now for your first year of retirement, if you retire on April 1st, that's your first day of retirement, you'll get the cost of living increase for that year. If you retire on April 2nd or after, you will miss that year's cost of living increase and you'll get next year's cost of living increase when April 1st comes around and then every year after that. Somebody was asking about this earlier. That's why March is kind of our biggest retirement month, because people who are already going to retire in the spring know that they should retire April 1st or before. Usually sometime in March, they tend to retire in order to get that immediate 2 or 3% increase. It's not always 2 or 3% that first year, but since inflation tends to be around 3% in the US, it tends to be the maximum. We always know what the cost of living increase is going to be for any particular year in early February, and we posted that on our website. For this year, it is the 2 or 3%, because I think inflation was calculated as 4.5%. Okay, so people ask, well, what if there's a dilemma between the age factor percentage and the COLA? So this is for people who are thinking about retiring in the spring, and maybe their birthday falls such that there is a dilemma between the age factor percentage and the cost of living adjustment. Let me give you an example of that. So I'm a general member, I'm age 54, and I'm just saying that to illustrate that I have not yet reached the maximum age factor percentage for my tier. My birthday again is January 15th. I'm going to retire in the spring. Now I'm considering when to retire. Should I retire on April 16th, which means that I'm getting past that 1/4 year mark after my birth date. So I'm passing that date so that I get the age factor percentage increase, but I'm going to miss the cost of living adjustment that I would have gotten had I retired on April 1st or before. Or should I retire on April 1st and get the cost of living increase, but I'm going to miss that age factor increase that's going to come up in a couple of couple of weeks by passing the April 15th, 1/4 after my birthday date. Which should I do? Well, you probably already know the answer because I already gave you the percentages. If the cost of living adjustment for that year is the maximum, you go with the cost of living adjustment because it's a 2% or 3% increase versus a 1% and change increase. Now, if in that same scenario, you think you were considering retiring in the spring and then you decide to retire in the summer, like let's say late July, then you'll get 2 age factor increases, plus you'll get 3 more months of service credit, and that'll beat the cost of living adjustment. So there is a time after the cost of living adjustment, in any case, after April 1st, where it probably would have been advantageous for you. You would have gotten more money had you retired before right on April 1st or right before to get the cost of living increase. But within a couple of months, that resolves itself because you earn more credit toward retirement with service credit, age factor increases, perhaps salary increases. So that will resolve itself pretty quickly. Okay, the fifth thing that you're going to want to think about when choosing your retirement date is I'm revisiting this idea about retiring on the day after your last day of work. I talked about this regarding the sick leave conversion earlier. So I'm just revisiting this idea. If your intent is to go straight from active work into retirement in order to get that sick leave conversion, make sure your retirement date is the next day after your last day in active payroll status. Okay. So this is your last day of work. This is your last day on payroll. This is your last day in active status. It's just different ways to say your last day of work, basically. Like I said, you can be on leave this day. You can be on vacation leave or sick leave or floating holiday or whatever. It's fine. It's just that this is the day, your last day on payroll. This is the day that you write in your letter of resignation to your employer. Your retirement date is the day that you write on your retirement application to ACERA. This is your first day of retirement. Okay. So that makes them consecutive days. You spend 0 days as a deferred member, and we will do the sick leave conversion for you. Okay. Number 6, a similar topic is you're going to want to retire on a day after you're scheduled to work. Okay. So make sure that this day is a day that you're scheduled to work. So an example is if you work Monday through Friday, don't retire on Sunday or Monday. Because if you work Monday through Friday, you're not going to want to retire on Sunday or Monday because the day before is not a day that you are scheduled to work. And that will mess up the sick leave conversion thing. Okay. So you don't want to mess that up. So just make sure that this day is a day that you are actually scheduled to work. Now, for safety members and people working in the healthcare fields, sometimes you have schedules that aren't that predictable very far in advance. So what you may want to do is in advance, you pick a week that you are planning to retire. And then when it gets closer to the time and you see the schedule, then you can adjust what your retirement day is, making sure that it's a day before you're actually on schedule to work. But like I said, you can still be on leave on that last day. It's okay. It's just that you should be, that should be like a scheduled working day. Also, make your retirement date and I think your last day of work on a non-holiday, on a non-regular holiday. Like Thanksgiving, don't have your last day of work be on like Thanksgiving or the day after, because it messes something up that I don't remember what it messes up, but it's something gets screwed up. Okay, and the separation date, again, it's your separation date is your last day of work. But like I said, you don't actually have to be at work that day. You can be on leave, but it's your last day in active payroll status. Last day on payroll is another way to say it. Okay, so going back to your retirement planning worksheet. Now that you have a better idea of choosing your retirement date, if that changed, you could write in your projected retirement date, or you can also put in your separation date. If you know that you're going to go straight into retirement date, you just take your projected retirement date, subtract 1 day, and that becomes your separation date. Okay, let me talk about the process of applying to retire. Okay, there's a question of the Social Security added annuity if you retire prior to 62. If you want to hang around after the presentation, I can tell you about that topic after the presentation because it doesn't apply to a lot of people. So I can talk about that later. Okay, let me tell you about the process of applying to retire. What does that process actually look like? Okay, are the steps. Step one is going through that preparing to retire section that I was showing you earlier. I'll show it to you one more time. You go out to acera.org. You come under here, you go to prepare to retire. I think you can also find it under the members menu. It goes to the same place, preparing to retire. So this again is in chronological order. You've already done some of these things. Like today, we've talked about verifying your retirement eligibility, so you can check that off. If you're not considering purchasing service credit, you can check that off. Understanding how vacation pay affects your pension. Well, we already just talked about that, so you can check that off. So you're already well ahead of the game. Attend a pre-retirement seminar. You're doing that right now. You can check that off. Okay. But there are a few other things in here, like addressing community property settlements, making sure we have certain documents on file. If you changed your name, providing proof of that you're just going to want to go ahead and go through the section ahead of time. That's not super complicated stuff. It's pretty easy, but just kind of go ahead and do it ahead of time, and we kind of tell you how far ahead of time we want you to do it. That's step one. WMS is Web Member Services. That is the member portal. That's basically your online account. Okay, so step two, and nobody knows what that acronym means, so I should just get rid of that acronym. So yeah, sorry about that. Step number two is setting up a ready to retire counseling session 3 to 6 months before your retirement date to fully prepare. And you do that by submitting the form. You can go to acera.org/counseling, or it happens to be one of the steps on that preparing to retire page. And in fact, it's the second to last step after choosing your retirement date. So once you know what your retirement date is, then you know what the 6-month period before that is. And in the 3 to 6 months before that, you can go ahead and schedule a ready to retire counseling session. It's a form that you fill out. And once you submit it to us, we'll get in contact with you to schedule the session. And the session will be scheduled for the 90-day period leading up to your retirement date. So the 3 months before your retirement date, you'll get that session scheduled during that time. And then finally, actually not finally, it's not the last step. Step number 3 is actually submitting the retirement application. So you do that within 90 days before your retirement date. So in that 90-day period, you can do that. And we can walk you through it during the counseling session. But I think what they wanted you to do now is you go ahead and submit the application prior to the counseling session. But whenever they contact you about the counseling session, they will take you through that, and they will provide you a checklist of things that you need to do to prepare for that counseling session. There are instructions if you want to go through them at acera.org/retire, but that also happens to be the last and final step on the preparing to retire page, is applying to retire. And so there is a ton of information about what to do. And then there's information about selecting your retirement option. And then you actually get down to the actual retirement application. And we have recently launched this on DocuSign. So these are all virtual DocuSign forms that you sign virtually. You don't have to get paper involved, scanners, ink, photos, anything, printers involved. It's all DocuSign. Okay. So we just totally revamped our retirement application and relaunched it about a month ago. Let me switch back over to the presentation. This option election agreement, I actually, because this is new, I actually need to just go ahead and delete this because we combined this into the retirement application. So now on your retirement application, you will be selecting from one of 5 retirement options. So you can just go ahead and disregard this step, and I'll go ahead and delete that out later from the presentation. So that's all going to be contained within the retirement application. So you submit your retirement application. On your retirement application, you tell us what your retirement date is. Okay, so once you submitted it, we process it in our system. And then once the date passes that you told us you were going to retire, then you're retired. It's amazing. You are getting ready to be retired, and you're getting ready to collect that lifetime benefit that you've been earning all this time. So it's a pretty exciting time. So that's exactly how it works. It's pretty simple. You go through the preparing to retire section, schedule a counseling session, submit a retirement application. That's basically it. Okay, now on your worksheet, you know what day, kind of what the date range is to submit your ready to retire counseling form to get that counseling session scheduled. It's you take your retirement date and subtract 6 months. You can go ahead and fill that in here. Okay, I see a few questions here. What's reviewed during the counseling session? Your retirement application is reviewed. I think we review to make sure you have all the documents that we need to have on file. They will talk about getting you right into one of our healthcare plans if you want to enroll in one of our healthcare plans without having any gap in coverage, and any other questions that you have. But they'll give you more information about that whenever you schedule that session. Okay, there's a question. I plan to notify my department 2 weeks before my last work day because I'm on provisional status and don't want to end sooner than my planned retirement date. Is that all right? Sure. I mean, we don't really control what you're doing regarding resigning. So that's, how much notice that you want to give is totally up to you. You will find that in our section, the retire section, where it has the instructions for doing your retirement application, there's also a draft, what's it called? Resignation letter in there if you just want to use that. So you can just copy and paste that and edit it for your own purposes. Okay, so there's a comment, you don't trust online things. It's too easy to make a mistake and be stuck with it. So we will, if you do use DocuSign, and fill out your retirement application that way, our retirement specialists receive it, they review it, and anything that needs to be changed can be changed prior to retirement. So you're not necessarily going to be, you're not going to be stuck with whatever you filled out on there. You can change your application anytime up to the point of retirement, including your retirement date. If you fill out an application, decide on a retirement date, and then change your mind before that date passes, you could fill out an entirely new application and change that date. So just because you submitted it doesn't mean you're necessarily stuck with it. But if you do want to fill out the PDF version, there is a PDF version there. You can print it out and fill it out by hand. If you retire out of state, how are your medical benefits affected? I'll go through that whenever we talk about the medical plans. There's a comment, you may have missed it, but you say I may have missed it, but how does sick leave affect your retirement? I'll just say really quickly, we talked about how we convert sick leave on a 2-to-1 basis to service credit. So you'll basically get that as service credit if you go straight into retirement. And whenever we post the video, you might want to go back and watch that section toward the beginning of the presentation. Okay, so since you're planning on retiring this month, will there be any issues since you'll be missing the retirement counseling? No, there shouldn't be. Yeah, we've totally revamped that form, so it's super self-explanatory. There's not really anything to miss on there. You can't really make a mistake because it forces you to put in all the information that we need. So it's really hard to make a mistake on there, and we can always do any anything that we need to do over the phone with you. So the counseling session isn't required. There's a question, are we assigned a retirement specialist throughout the 6 months of the retirement process? I believe so. I believe you will be working with the same person throughout there. There may be some people assisting that person, but I believe you'll be working with the exact same counselor throughout that 6-month period. Okay. You can expect your first retirement check within the 4 to 6 weeks after your last employer paycheck. So we have revamped our process in the last few years so that almost 100% of people, almost everyone, leading up to your retirement, we do preliminary calculations. So on your date of retirement, we are able to do the final calculations and get you right onto your 100% retirement payment. So that happens almost every time these days. Now, there are a few people here and there occasionally where there's a major issue with the file. We'll still start your retirement payments. It's just you'll get an estimated 80% payment until we resolve the issues. Then we'll get you up to your 100% payment and issue you retro payments. So that's just something that they want me to let you know about. But the vast majority of people would just get you right on your 100% payment right from the start. Okay, let me go through. Let's see. There's one question. So you only get the cost of living if you retire on April 1st, not on April 2nd. Yeah, if you retire on April 2nd, you will never get a cost of living adjustment ever. I'm telling you the wrong thing. If you retire on April 2nd, actually what happens is, yes, you miss the cost of living adjustment that you would have gotten had you retired on April 1st for this year. But it's not a big deal because when next April 1st comes around, you'll get the next year's cost of living adjustment. When the next year after that comes around, April 1st, you'll get that year's cost of living adjustment, and every year after that. So you can count on the cost of living increase every year on April 1st. But yes, in that first year, we do have to have a cutoff date, and the cutoff date is April 1st. Okay, let me tell you about the 5 retirement allowance options that we have available for you. On your retirement application, you will be choosing one of these 5 options. And this is your one opportunity to make this choice. So after your retirement, you can't make a different choice. Once you're retired, your option that you chose is locked in. Okay, so it's good to understand what these are leading up to retirement so that you choose the one that's best for you. There's 5 options. There's the unmodified option and options 1 through 4. So let me tell you about each one of these. And for each one, I'm going to show you a slide that has a ton of text on it. Sorry, there's so many details about each one of these, but I'll walk you through each one. The top of each one of the tables is going to tell you about your retirement allowance as a retiree. All of the information beneath it is going to tell you about what your beneficiary will receive after your death. Okay. Now, your beneficiary, the beneficiary, that word just means somebody who gets benefits. Your ACERA beneficiary is somebody who you have designated to get your ACERA death benefits after you die. So that's simply what beneficiary means. Excuse me. Okay. So let me tell you about the unmodified option first. So this is the option that most people select because it pays the maximum retirement allowance to you, the retiree, of any of the other options. Now, the subtitle of the unmodified option is 60% to beneficiary because regarding what your beneficiary will receive after you die, that's what it pays. It pays a 60% monthly continuance. Okay. And so to those people asking questions at the beginning of the presentation about how to leave a continuance to somebody, this is how. Okay. So it's in which option you're going to choose. Okay. So most of the options, except for option 1, has the ability to leave a continuance to a beneficiary. The unmodified option, what it does is it leaves a 60% monthly continuance to a qualified beneficiary. Now, the qualified beneficiary are bulleted out here. It's a spouse or a state registered domestic partner who you have married or registered at least 1 year before retirement. That's what makes them qualified as a continuance beneficiary in this option, unmodified option. And the word continuance, that just simply means a continuing payment. Okay. So as a retiree, you're getting a monthly retirement allowance for the rest of your life. So it's paid on the last business day of the month. After your death, your continuance beneficiary will also receive a continuing monthly payment on the last business day of the month. That's why it's called a continuance. Okay, so if you don't have a spouse or state registered domestic partner, but you do have a minor child or children, you could name them as your continuance beneficiary. Now, they're not going to get it for the rest of their life. It's going to be a temporary benefit, and it's going to stop at age 18, unless they maintain enrollment as a full-time student in an accredited school, and then it can continue up to age 22, at which point it will stop. Now, it will also stop if they get married or register a state domestic partner in that time. So that will cut it off as well. Okay. One more thing I want to point out here is that if you have a service-connected disability retirement because you have a disability, you're awarded a disability retirement connected with your service, then it's 100% continuance rather than 60. Okay, now there's some more text on here that I want to explain. The benefit to the beneficiary is either the 60% continuance or a lump sum payment. Okay. If you have a continuance beneficiary, it's going to be a continuance. If you don't have a continuance beneficiary, you can still pick the unmodified option. Lots of people choose the unmodified option who don't have a spouse, domestic partner, or minor children. It's totally fine. And you can even name a beneficiary. But what they will be eligible for is not a monthly continuance. It will be a one-time lump sum payment. And it will be basically a refund of the balance of your contribution account with Acera. So it's all of the employee contributions that you've paid in throughout your entire career, plus all the interest that that money has accrued that we've paid into that account as we've earned interest, minus all of the retirement allowance payments that we've already paid out to you. Okay. What that means is that it's a finite sum. And if you are retired for at least 3 to 5 years, then that money will have already been paid out to you. Okay, so there will not be a balance left for a lump sum beneficiary in terms of a balance of your contribution account. So that's the bad news. The good news is that means that if you choose the unmodified option, so everyone in all cases, that means that if you choose the unmodified option, within that first 3 to 5 years of retirement, we are paying you back all the money that you put in throughout your entire career and through your retirement allowance payments. And then everything after that, if you're retired, if you live a long time after that, is like a pure amazing bonus for you. And I think there was a question up on the board. How are we able to do that? It's because partially your employer is making contributions. So then we pay out of the employer's contributions, but mostly it's from the investment earnings. The investment earnings pay for 75% of your lifetime retirement allowance. And it is not, and this is not a finite amount. So I use the word lifetime retirement allowance. You get it every month for the rest of your life, regardless of whether we guessed right on how much contributions to take and how much interest that we've earned. But when I say guess, I mean, we use actuaries and everything's calculated super well. So, we know exactly how much money we owe now and in the future, and we collect and earn enough to pay those benefits. So you don't even have to worry about that. But I just wanted to highlight the idea that being a part of a defined benefit pension plan is amazing, because everything that you paid in within that first 3 to 5 years, you get back. And then everything after that is like a pure bonus. And you can count on your secure retirement being paid to you for the rest of your life. And then if you have a continuance beneficiary after your death, you can count on them being paid as well. Okay, there's one more scenario I want to point out for the unmodified option. And that is at the time of retirement, you had a continuance beneficiary, that you named, but then you retire and that person dies before you do. If that happens in retirement, you can name a new beneficiary, but only for lump sum payments. Okay. The only point at which you get to name a continuance beneficiary is at the time of retirement on your retirement application. And so that's just the way it works. That also means that, like, let's say that at the time of retirement, you didn't have a spouse or state registered domestic partner, and then you retired, and then after you got married, again, you can name your new spouse or partner as your beneficiary, but only for lump sum payments. Okay, let's see. There's a person asking, will you cover the alternative modified option? I'm not sure what option that is that you're referring to. I'm gonna cover the 5 options that we have, and maybe you can describe what you mean by alternative modified option. Okay, and there's a question, can you choose one or the other, spouse or minor children, for a continuance? Yeah, so in California, your spouse or state registered domestic partner has a right to that continuance um, that supersedes anyone else, unless they sign away that right, and then you could name your minor children, but it's one or the other. It's either spouse or minor children for the unmodified option. Okay, and then there's a question for the spouse benefit. For the spousal benefit in the unmodified option, if it's past 3 to 5 years, do they still get something if I die? Oh yeah, yep. So that 3 to 5 years balance thing is only for the lump sum payments. That doesn't affect the continuance. The continuance option is still available for your continuance beneficiary after you pass away. That is unaffected by that, the balance of your contribution account. So that's the unmodified option. And there was a question about disability retirement. I'll address that toward the end of the presentation. Option number 1 is the only one of the 5 options that does not allow you to leave a continuance to a beneficiary. This is a lump sum only option. Okay. This option 1 is kind of an alternative to the unmodified option. And that's because what it does for you, the retiree, is it pays almost as much in your retirement allowance as the unmodified option. It's only slightly less. There's a very slight reduction. What it does is it changes the amount of time that there will be a lump sum balance left for a lump sum beneficiary. It extends it rather than it being only the first 3 to 5 years, it's 10 to 12 years. So if you died within the first 10 to 12 years after retirement, there would be a lump sum balance left over for a lump sum beneficiary. So that's basically what the option 1 is for, is if you want to still have kind of almost the maximum retirement allowance, but you want to extend the time that there's a lump sum amount left for a lump sum beneficiary, and you're not interested in having a continuance beneficiary. So you can choose option 1. Yeah. So yeah, the alternative unmodified, it kind of sounds like the unmodified option to me. So maybe that's a term from a different pension fund, alternative unmodified. And there's a question, when using the word beneficiary, is it used for a person other than a spouse? Absolutely. Your beneficiary is anyone who you name to receive your Sarah death benefits, even if it's not a spouse. Okay, option number 2, you'll notice that the subtitle is 100% to beneficiary. Okay, so option 2 does 2 things. It allows you to leave, rather than a 60% continuance to your beneficiary, you can leave 100% continuance to your beneficiary. And that's going to be a lifetime continuance. It also allows you to name anyone as a beneficiary. So it doesn't just have to be spouse, say registered domestic partner, or minor children. It could be an adult child, another family member, a friend, anyone. And so you could name them for a lifetime continuance. Now the caveat is that because it's 100% monthly continuance and it's gonna leave a lot more to the beneficiary, there's gonna be a reduction from the unmodified option. So this is gonna pay you while you're a retiree, starting on your retirement date, less than that you would get if you had selected the unmodified option. And the amount less is going to be based on a calculation of your beneficiary's life expectancy. So whoever you're naming as a beneficiary, if they're a lot younger than you, we're going to expect to have to pay them out for a longer period of time. So we're going to calculate it so that your retirement allowance is a lot less. So the younger your beneficiary is, the less you're going to receive as a retiree. But it does make it so that whatever your retirement allowance is calculated to be, plus cost of living increases, whatever your retirement allowance is at the time of your death, then your beneficiary receives that same amount every month for the rest of their life. Okay. Now, if your beneficiary dies before you do, we don't recalculate your retirement allowance. Like if they don't fully live out their whole life expectancy, we don't recalculate your retirement allowances. Whatever your retirement allowance is, it's calculated to be at the time of your retirement. That's what it's going to be for the rest of your life, plus cost of living adjustments. Okay. And then there's one more caveat here, and I should be more clear about this in the slide, is that if your beneficiary is not your spouse and they are at least 10 years younger, over 10 years younger than you, there is another rule that the IRS has that we may not be able to pay out 100% continuance. Your retirement counselor can talk to you more about that when it comes time if you're considering that. But there is more information about that on our retire page. If you, it's this page here, applying to retire. So it's acera.org/retire. And it's the one that is the last prepare to retire. It's the very last step on the prepare to retire page, applying to retire. Okay. And if you look through the options under option 2, there's more information about that IRS thing if you're interested in that and you want to research that yourself. So that's option 2. Okay. It pays you less as a retiree, but it allows you to leave 100% monthly continuance to a beneficiary who's anyone. Option number 3 is very similar to option 2. In fact, it's exactly the same except for one detail, which is that rather than leaving 100% to your beneficiary, you're leaving 50% continuance to your beneficiary. So whatever your retirement allowance was at the time that you die, your beneficiary's continuance is going to be 50% of that amount every month for the rest of their life. And again, you can name anyone and all the other rules apply, same as option 2. Now, what this means is because we're paying the beneficiary less than option 2, that means we're going to pay you more as a retirement allowance. So option 3, your retirement allowance is more than would be under option 2. Okay. Okay, now option number 4 is the exact same as options 2 and 3, okay, in one sense, in that you can name anyone as a beneficiary for lifetime continuance. And so that part's the same. The part that's different is you can specify the amount to one or more beneficiaries. Okay, so you could actually have 2 continuance beneficiaries in option 4 if you wanted to. You can also specify any amount that you want, dollar-wise or percentage-wise, to go to those beneficiaries. So let me give you an example. You have a nephew that you want to leave a 20% continuance to. Well, you can't do that under options 2 and 3. It's 50% or 100%. So, but you could specify that for option 4. One person that you want to leave a 20% continuance to. Or if you have 2 people that you would want to leave a continuance to, you can do that as well. Like, let's say you have 2 adult children and you want to leave each of them a 20% continuance. So 40% total, you could do that. Or you could leave them each 100% total, like 50 each. Now, depending on how you slice and dice this, it's going to be a significant reduction to your retirement allowance. So you're going to want to be careful there, because if you're trying to leave money to adult children, that's a beautiful thing. But another beautiful thing is you being a financially secure, solvent adult for the rest of your life that can afford your expenses. So that's also a beautiful thing to give to your children. So that's option number 4. But a lot of all the other same rules apply. Now I do see a question in up here. You can only name one beneficiary for the online estimator, and that's true. For the online estimator, you can't get an estimate for option 4 because there's too many permutations of what you can do. And so if you want an estimate for option 4, you would want to talk to your counselor at the time of retirement, and they can do that for you. But otherwise, for everyone else, you can even get specific retirement estimates for all of these options, what it pays you and what it pays your beneficiaries in a continuance. And all you do, again, here's some screenshots of the benefit estimator. In the benefit estimator, all you simply need to do is do your retirement scenario, put in your beneficiaries information here, okay? And make sure that it's correct. If you click the drop down here, you may see your beneficiary, your active death benefit beneficiaries for Acera in here. And so if you select one of them, just make sure that the date of birth is correct, because that will affect the math. Then you hit get estimate, you end up with the PDF, and I'll zoom in here. And so now that these probably make more sense. The unmodified option, option 1, option 2, option 3. And like I said, it can't give you an estimate for option 4. But it shows you what your retirement allowance is, an estimate of that under each one of the options. And then it will show you what your beneficiaries' estimated continuance would be after you die. Okay, so let's see, moving on. Let me see if there's any questions here real quick. Should the beneficiaries be US citizens? I don't think that's important. I'm pretty sure that we could name other people, but go ahead and make sure, just double check on that with your retirement counselor. If you want to know ahead of time, you can also contact us if you don't want to call. There's a contact page on our website where you can type in a message to us, and it'll start an email thread with us. Okay, so then there's the person who is following up about the alternative option. So it sounds like what you want to do is receive your maximum benefit when you retire, and only upon death have 2 grandkids as beneficiaries. When you say you want to have the 2 grandkids as beneficiaries, do you want them to be a lump sum beneficiary or a continuance beneficiary? Okay. If you want them to have a lump sum beneficiary and you want to receive your maximum retirement allowance, you're going to want to pick the unmodified option, and then name the 2 grandkids as your lump sum beneficiaries. Now, if you're trying to leave them a continuance, your only option is going to be option 4. And this is not going to give you your maximum retirement allowance. And there's really no way to have both. It's a compromise. And so you're going to get less than the unmodified option, but you would be allowed to leave your grandchildren continuances, both continuances in an amount or a dollar amount or percentage that you specify. And so that's your complete set of options. Okay, so whichever gives you the highest monthly allowance, yeah. So that would be the unmodified option. So then you'd pick the unmodified option, and you would name your grandchildren for sorry to scroll around so much, as lump sum beneficiaries. And so that's what you would want to do. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so in the unmodified option, if the beneficiary I choose dies before me, am I allowed to make a new beneficiary? Yes, but only for lump sum payments. You can't name a new continuance beneficiary after your continuance beneficiary dies. Then there's a question, does the spouse need to sign off on all of these options? Your spouse does need to sign um, your retirement application, yes. Okay, so let's see. We have 18 minutes, which is slightly less time than I need to do the full explanation of the healthcare benefits. So I might go a few minutes over. So hopefully you'll be able to stick around for that. And so I'll just go ahead and launch right into that. Okay, so Acera offers the guaranteed benefits, right? We've talked a lot about the vested benefits that you're guaranteed that you've earned. There's also another group of non-guaranteed benefits. These are extra benefits that the county in the past decided that employees needed in retirement to be able to pay for their lives. And they started this reserve fund called the Supplemental Retiree Benefits Reserve that that holds money to pay for these extra benefits. But like I said, they're not guaranteed. What they're based on is the amount of money in that reserve fund. And so what our board of retirement does is they ensure the sustainability of that fund. They're the ones that manage the fund, and their whole goal is to ensure that there is money in there into the future to pay these types of non-guaranteed benefits like healthcare benefits. Okay, and so the current set of benefits are medical subsidies, and MMA stands for monthly medical allowance. That's just the name of our medical subsidy. Dental subsidy, vision subsidy, Medicare subsidy, and a supplemental cost of living adjustment. This is the current set of benefits that are available, that are paid out of this reserve fund. I'll just as a side note, the reserve fund is currently considered very sustainable. There's over $1 billion in there, and it has a sustainable life, a very sustainable lifespan currently. Okay, so one more thing I want to point out on the slide is that because the board is trying to ensure the sustainability of this fund, they manage the levels of benefits, they manage the rules around the benefits. Their rules for who has access to these non-guaranteed benefits currently are based on amount of years of Acera service credit. Now, notice I say Acera service credit because reciprocal service credit is not included in here. This is just years of Acera service credit. And you can see that the supplemental cost of living adjustment requires no years of Acera service credit. So everyone has access to that. But then all of the other benefits start at least 10 years of Acera service credit. And then for the monthly medical allowance, there's actually a couple more levels, higher levels, if you have at least 15 or 20 years of service credit. Let me talk about each one of these benefits in more detail. I'll talk about the medical benefits first. And when I'm talking about medical benefits, I'm not only talking about the monthly medical allowance subsidy, I'm also talking about your ability to enroll in medical plans through Acera. And so even if you're not eligible for the subsidy, you can still enroll in our medical plans as long as you have enough retirement allowance to cover the cost of the monthly premiums. So what does the monthly medical allowance cover? Okay, how does it work? What does it do? First of all, it's a non-guaranteed benefit, like I said. What it does is it offsets the costs of being enrolled in a Acera-sponsored retiree medical plan. So no outside plans. If you go get your own coverage, that's fine, but you don't have the monthly medical allowance available to help pay the cost of that. We have group plan options for which the monthly medical allowance will pay the monthly premiums, pay toward the monthly premiums and offset those costs. We do have individual plan options that it will not only offset the cost of monthly premiums, but also copays and deductibles. And monthly medical allowance again means, or MMA means monthly medical allowance. Okay, so the amount is set annually by the Board of Retirement. Any costs exceeding what the subsidy is, the monthly medical allowance, you are responsible for paying as the retiree. And the subsidy is not available for anyone else but you. No beneficiaries, survivors, former spouses, no one else, just you, the retiree. And there's a question, when retired, it's essentially up to the board of retirement folks to keep the dental vision, medical dental vision benefits going. And I guess you were just wanting to know if they're in danger of stopping them, and they are not. And like I said, that fund is considered really sustainable. What they do is they have an actuary measure it every year and do projections on it, and they come back with a amount of years that the actuary projects the fund will last into the future if no new money comes in. The board's measurement for it being considered sustainable is if the actuary says it will last at least 15 years in the future. Currently, the actuary says it will last at least 21 years in the future, which is considered very sustainable. That's about as high as it gets. And that's only if no new money comes in, but new money is always flowing into this reserve fund because it gets regular interest credit. And also any interest that we make more than we predict, half of that excess money goes into this reserve fund. So that fund gets, it builds and builds. Like I said, there's over $1 billion in there. So there's going to be money to pay these type of benefits for a long, long time. And the board will make sure of that. That's their goal. Okay, so regarding the monthly medical allowance, here are the amounts of the subsidies for 2022. If you have at least 20 years of ACERA service credit, you're eligible for the full monthly medical allowance at $596.73. If you have at least 15 years, that's the 3/4 amount. That goes down to $447.55. And then if you have at least 10 years of service credit, you're eligible for half of the monthly medical allowance amount, which is $298.37. Okay, regarding our medical plans, so then you can see what the medical plan options are, and you can kind of compare the costs with how much the subsidy is going to cover, and you can kind of see what you're allowed to enroll in. So this is a list of our current plan options. First of all, our open enrollment for ACERA is the month of November every year. Okay. And then our plans are divided. I'll just kind of talk about them in kind of two categories. We have non-Medicare eligible plans, which is plans that you have the option to enroll in if you're not yet Medicare eligible, which is generally if you're under age 65. If you're Medicare eligible, you're going to be choosing from these plan options, which is age 65 and older. And Medicare, if you're not that familiar with it, is the federal government's healthcare system for people age 65 and older. Okay, so you can see that there's 3 companies here: Kaiser Permanente, United Healthcare, and Via Benefits. The way I'll talk about this is I'll show you the non-Medicare eligible group plans. I'll show you the Medicare eligible group plan option. And then I'll talk about the individual plan options through Via Benefits together because it's more efficient to talk about it that way. For all of these plans, I'm basically just showing you the costs and not really talking about the plan details because, there's a lot of details that you can dig into. If you want the full details, you can always check out our annual enrollment guide. And that is at acera.org/guide. And that's a PDF. And as a retiree, you'll get that in the mail in paper every year. Okay, here are our non-Medicare plan group options. There's 3 options. These are for people living in California service areas. The service areas are the Bay Area, Sacramento, Fresno, Southern California, and for Kaiser Permanente, Santa Cruz. So if you live outside those service areas, even if you live in California, you cannot enroll in a group plan. If you live outside of California, you cannot enroll in one of these plans. But if that's you, there will be individual plan options through Via Benefits, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Okay. So you can see that the self-premium, the monthly premium that you would owe every month for being enrolled in one of these plans are listed out here. You can see that the United Healthcare Signature Value Advantage HMO plan is the cheapest plan at $781.42. You can also see that even if you have the 20-year monthly medical allowance, which was $596, you'll still owe about almost $200 if you enroll in that plan. Okay. In the cheapest plan. So that would be your cost, and then the monthly medical allowance would cover the rest. So you can see that the monthly medical allowance For early retirees, what we call non-Medicare, that's what we call non-Medicare retirees, are that does not cover the 100% of the monthly premiums in any case. Okay, so regarding how you actually pay for the premiums and how you receive the monthly medical allowance if you enroll in one of our group plans, I have created this very crude illustration of your ACERA retirement allowance check stub. So you have your gross pay here. In this example, it's $4,000. Then you have a deductions column. So in this case, this person enrolled in the Kaiser Permanente HMO plan. So what we will do is we will deduct your premium that you are going to owe to Kaiser in this example and send it over to Kaiser as a courtesy to you to make it easy for you. Then we will also, if you are eligible for the monthly medical allowance, we will put that back into the same check in the additions column. And what you end up paying is the difference. Okay. There are also going to be a lot of other stuff here like taxes and stuff, but this is just, like I said, a super simple explanation because we're talking about the medical. One thing I want to point out about all of these subsidies, none of them are taxable income. We have it worked out with the IRS so that it's not taxable income. Okay, so those are the early retiree group plan options, Kaiser Permanente and 2 United Healthcare plans. For the Medicare population, if you are Medicare eligible or whenever you become Medicare eligible in retirement, then you would be selecting a Medicare option. Now, if you want the group plan, there's only one option. It's the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage Plan. And what the Medicare plans do is they work with Medicare. Medicare provides most of the cost of the medical coverage and provides most of the care. And then these Medicare plans kind of fill in the gaps that Medicare doesn't cover and gives you a higher level of coverage. And that's why the premium is so much cheaper, $344.44. Okay. I've also taken the liberty of putting in an extra row here for those people who would be eligible for the 20-year monthly medical allowance. And so I can show you what the out-of-pocket costs would be. So you have the premium, and then we subtract out the monthly medical allowance, and then you have your out-of-pocket costs. Now you'll notice one of the reasons I did this is to illustrate this point that for the monthly medical allowance, it only pays up to the amount of the group premium. It does not pay more than that. You do not get to keep the change. So if your premium amount is lower than the monthly medical allowance amount that you're eligible for, then that becomes your monthly medical allowance amount. So that means that you would have a zero out-of-pocket cost, but not being able to keep the change. That's just the way the board has it set up. Okay, let's see here. Medical premiums, are they deducted from retirement checks pre-tax or after tax? Not sure. I'm sorry. I don't know the answer to that question. That would be something that if you want to answer that question, go ahead and write into our staff and ask them that question. If you retire before November, what healthcare is available for you? All of it, because retiring is a qualifying event and we'll get you right into one of these plans without a gap in coverage. We have a healthcare unit that will help you do that. Okay. Let's see. If you're living in California 6 months and Florida 6 months, can you keep Kaiser? Yes. 6 months is the standard. So if you live in the group plan service area for 6 months, that's the standard for being able to maintain enrollment. Are retirement checks taxable? Yes. You will pay income taxes on your retirement income, and we will send you a 1099 every January for that. If both your spouse and you are on Medicare plus one family member, like for example, for the Kaiser Permanente plan, you would be looking at, sounds like you're both Medicare eligible and yourself plus one plus family. So you'd be looking at this premium here, $1,388. And if you had the 20-year monthly medical allowance, then you can see that that would come out of that total, and that your out-of-pocket would be $1,044.34. Now, if you want to see, we've done this math for you in our guide for all of the different iterations and permutations of different monthly medical allowance amounts. So that would be the place to check that out. Okay. Is United Healthcare available in every state? Our group plan United Healthcare is only available in California, but I believe United Healthcare plans can be found across a lot of the nation through via benefits. So that's a good segue into talking about individual plans through via benefits. Okay. Okay, so who can enroll in a via benefits individual plan? If you're not yet Medicare eligible, which means that you're generally under age 65, you must live inside the US, but outside the ACERA group plan service areas that I named, okay, that we're all in California. So even if you live like up in Redding in California, that's outside the group plan service area, then you're eligible to find an individual plan through via benefits. If you're Medicare eligible, you have to live inside the US, and you just have to anywhere in the US, even if it's in our group plan service areas, that doesn't matter for Medicare eligible. You just have to enroll in Medicare. Okay. That's how you can enroll in an individual plan through VA benefits. Now, what is VA benefits? It is a private health insurance exchange. So what they do, we contract with them. They basically offer a marketplace where they've done all the contracting with the healthcare plans and providers, that the insurance plan providers for us. So they contract with 80 different insurance carriers. And what they do is they match you with an insurance plan that is right for you. There's like 1,000 different plans that they have available to match you with. So when you go to enroll, you call them on the phone, or you can do an online enrollment. If you do call them, you'll talk to a benefit advisor who's non-commissioned. They're salaried, so making you forcing you into one insurance carrier over another based on what they get paid. Okay. What you do is you show up with some information for them, where you live or where you're going to live, how much you want to spend, what level of coverage you're looking for. You can even get as granular as what providers you want to see, what prescription drugs you need, and they will narrow down their plans to just a few plans that you can choose from, and they will give you more information about those plans. And the monthly medical allowance for those plans not only pays the monthly premiums, but the deductibles and co-pays. If you are in a deductible plan, we'll pay the deductible. Okay. Now, the monthly medical allowance, if you're eligible for it, works differently with these individual medical plans through via benefits because you are enrolling directly with a healthcare carrier. So we can't really do it in and out of your ACERA check. So here's how it works. Here's ACERA. Okay, you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, let's say. So what we're going to do is if you enroll in an individual plan through VA benefits, we're going to take your monthly medical allowance that you're eligible for, and we're going to send it over to VA benefits. They're going to open up a health reimbursement account for you, which is what HRA stands for. And they're going to put that monthly medical allowance money in there for you, and it's going to sit there and wait for you. Okay, now over here, here's your bank account. Okay, now you enroll in an individual plan through via benefits with an individual insurance company. Let's say it's United Healthcare, since somebody brought that up. You're going to owe a monthly premium to that insurance company. So you're going to pay that out of your bank account. You are then probably going to go to the doctor and utilize your healthcare insurance. You're going to owe a copay. You're going to pay that out of your bank account. Now you're out some money. So what you do is you submit reimbursement claims back to via benefits, and they will pay you your monthly medical allowance out of your health reimbursement account to reimburse you for these costs. You can set up a lot of this stuff to happen electronically and automatically, so you don't have to do a lot of work, especially recurring payments to your insurance company and recurring reimbursements for that, and they will help you set that up. They also have online reimbursement, so you can submit online reimbursement claims for copays. So that's how that works. Okay, now there's somebody who had a question regarding, I think it's regarding the Medicare. Over 20 years, it would be minus 596. I think you're referring to this. That is not correct. This is correct, where, like I was saying, the monthly medical allowance only pays for the group plans, only pays up to the amount of the self premium. Okay. So that's just the rule that the board has set up and to ensure the sustainability of the fund. Okay, so the phone number for for VIA benefits is out on our website. And if you go to acera.org/guide, that would, on the back page, there's phone numbers for all of those healthcare carriers and also for VIA benefits. One more thing I want to say about the VIA benefits plans is that for just the Medicare people, the Medicare eligible people who are seeking a plan through VIA benefits, what the board found is that those plans are so inexpensive that they created a different set of monthly medical allowance amounts just for those Medicare plans and VIA benefits. And so these are what they are. And you can see that the amounts are a little bit less than the other ones, but they keep track of who runs out of the money, and they find that over 90% of the people who have at least the 20 years of the full monthly medical allowance portion don't run out of the monthly medical allowance during the year, and it's enough to pay all of their medical costs throughout the year. Okay, this is going to take another, let me see, 12:03. Let's probably take another 7 minutes to do the rest of this, and then we'll move on to the deferred compensation program. Dental plans and dental subsidies. So you also will have the opportunity to enroll in dental coverage through Acera as a retiree. If you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit, you have to enroll in one of the plans, but it doesn't cost you anything. The self-premium and the subsidy are the same amount. So for example, if you chose the Delta Dental PPO and you had at least 10 years of Acera service credit, you would see $44.15 come out of your Acera check to pay for the plan, and you would see $44.15 go back into your Acera check to as a subsidy. So it costs you $0. Now, if you enroll yourself plus one or family, the premium is higher and the subsidy is still the $44.15. So you would just pay the difference between those. So that's how that works. If you have less than 10 years of Acera service credit, there's a different set of monthly premiums and there's no subsidy available for you. And you can see that there are two plans, the Delta Dental PPO and Delta Care USA. Delta Dental PPO is the nationwide one. Okay, so vision plans. Vision works very similarly to the dental plans. There is one base plan, the VSP standard plan. And again, if you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit, you have to be enrolled in at least that plan, but it doesn't cost you anything. The subsidy and the self-premium are, again, the same amount, $3.97 per month. You have the opportunity to buy up into a premium plan called the VSP premium plan. And that has an additional cost, but the subsidy is going to stay at $3.97. So if you did enroll in that plan, you would pay the difference between these two. Okay. And again, if you have less than 10 years of Acera service credit, you can voluntarily enroll in the vision plan, but it doesn't, and there's a different set of premiums. Okay. So the next non-guaranteed benefit that I want to talk really quickly about is the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan. So what this does is it offsets the cost of being enrolled in Medicare Part B. When you become Medicare eligible and you go to enroll in Medicare, so let's say you turn 65, you go to enroll in Medicare. You're going to enroll in Medicare Part A, which is hospitalization coverage, Medicare Part B, which is doctor's visits. And some plans have Medicare Part D, which is prescription drugs rolled into it, and some have it separate. But Medicare Part A, if you have paid into Medicare for at least 10 years, then Medicare Part A will be free for you. Medicare Part B, however, will come at a monthly cost. Currently for 2022, that cost is $170.10. But the Board of Retirement has decided that one of the benefits that they will offer is this reimbursement for that lowest cost that any of our members pay for being enrolled in Medicare Part B. So there is a different levels of costs that Medicare will charge you based on your income. So the lowest tier of that, people are paying $170.10, but it's a pretty wide tier of people. So there's not a lot of people paying more than that. But what you would see if you sign up for this, all you need to do is submit an enrollment form one time and maintain enrollment in Medicare Part B. You will just see an additional $170 10 go into your Acera check just to offset your cost of being enrolled in Medicare Part B. A couple more things I want to say about Medicare. One is that for safety members who haven't been paying into the Social Security system and the Medicare system, that's fine. You can still get Medicare Part A. It will just come at a cost. And in fact, there is a plan that we have, the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage Plan, that you can enroll in Medicare Part B, I think, without enrolling in Medicare Part A. So we have that worked out with Kaiser that you can do that. So you're going to want to ask your retirement counselor more about that if you're in that situation. The second thing I want to say about Medicare, and this is the last thing I can say before I need to move on, is that when you're transitioning into Medicare, or if you're already Medicare eligible but you're still working, the best way to transition into Medicare is to attend our Medicare transition webinar, which is if you go out to our website and you go to the place where under news and events where you found this one, you'll notice that there's Medicare seminars in here, and you can sign up for our Medicare seminar. We have 6 of them a year, and it's a good idea to it doesn't take very long. It's maybe about 90 minutes or less. And you can even watch, if you don't want to attend, we have past webinars up there. That's basically the same thing. And so you can just hit play here. Excuse me. So that's what I suggest if you want more information about Medicare. Okay, the last non-guaranteed benefit I'll talk about is the supplemental cost of living adjustment. This keeps you at least 85% of your original buying power that you enjoyed at the time of retirement. So if at any time in retirement, inflation gets so bad that you lose at least 15% of your buying power to inflation, supplemental cost of living adjustment kicks in and it keeps you at 85% of your original buying power. So it's a really powerful, benefit. And that's available for everyone. Okay, so I have like 2 more slides, and then we'll turn it over to the deferred compensation program. So just really briefly, there are some life events that may not apply to everyone, but I just want to let you know that these topics exist and you may want to explore this information out on your own. So for those of you who are deferring your retirement, quitting, which means that we define that's, stop quitting or terminating your employment, but not going straight into retirement, you're going to want to go ahead and read our deferred retirement page at acera.org/deferred. There's a lot of information, good information there for you. Okay, if you're curious about death benefits prior to retirement, should you die before retirement, because in this presentation, we only talked about death benefits that happen after your retirement that are available to your beneficiaries. But for the ones that are available to your beneficiaries, should you die before retirement, you can find more information on that at our death benefits page at acera.org/death. If you want to know more about divorce or domestic partnership dissolution and how that affects your Acera benefits, we highly recommend reading our page on divorce at acera.org/divorce, because your benefits that you earned in Acera are considered community property in the state of California, and those will be on the table for division during the divorce or domestic partnership dissolution process. There is an opportunity. If you become permanently disabled and you cannot perform your job duties, you can apply for disability retirement. So I can't really dig deeply into this, but if you're interested in this topic, please go ahead and read our disability retirement page. There's a lot of information out there for you. If you want to work after retirement, please read our page on working after retirement. Pretty much though, only if you're going to work for your same employer or one of Acera's other participating employers. If you go work for anyone else, the private sector or anyone who's not our 6 participating employers, we don't care. We're going to consider you a Acera retiree, and you're just going to get paid your retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. Okay. But if you do go back to work for one of our participating employers, there are some rules around that you're going to want to know about. So go ahead and explore that page. And then if you do move after your retirement, go ahead and there's information here about updating your address with us, because it's very important so that we can keep in contact with you and continue to send out our open enrollment stuff to you and annual reports and official correspondence. There is a really quick question that there's no cost for supplemental COLA. So that's just one of the non-guaranteed benefits. And then the other question I'll answer is, if you can leave the US and receive retirement benefits, absolutely. We'll still have to deposit your direct deposit into a US bank, but you can access your bank internationally. However, the medical, dental, vision, you won't be able to be enrolled in those unless you live in the service areas for 6 months out of the year. But hopefully, whatever country you move to is one of the many countries in the rest of the world that offers universal healthcare, like we seem to be unable to do here. So hopefully you would be able to get medical coverage and vision and dental coverage in that other country. Okay, so last thing, if you want to keep up with what's going on with Acera, we only send out important stuff. Go to acera.org/subscribe. Email us at any time by going to acera.org/contact or calling us at 510-628-3000. So on behalf of Acera's Board of Retirement and Acera staff, we wish you a really beautiful retirement. You earned it. So thank you so much for joining us. We wish you a beautiful day and a beautiful life.